In the late 90s and early 2000s, the Sonic the Hedgehog series changed forever. The games became 3D platformers that played very differently than before. They were highly experimental, introducing brand new gameplay styles and a ton of new characters to the series. If you're someone like me who grew up during this time, these are probably the first Sonic games you ever played, and if you're watching this video, I bet you love them. Almost as much as Sabrina Carpenter, or watching anime. In fact, some of my fondest memories in gaming are from when I played these games as a kid. But the issue with experiments is if you're not careful with them, they can blow up in your face. Year after year with these games being released, an interesting thing kept happening. The quality got worse and worse, until everything culminated in 2006 with one of the most infamous games ever made that almost killed the series. However, we're not there yet. To fully understand the story of how the treasured second era of Sonic came crashing down, we need to start at the beginning. Welcome to the early 3D Sonic retrospective. Let's take a step back to the mid-90s and the 5th generation of consoles. Every gaming franchise was about to jump into 3D on the N64 and PlayStation, so Sega wanted Sonic to join in and help sell their console, the Sega Saturn. The Sega Technical Institute was put to work on the game Sonic Extreme. It was given the deadline of 1996's holiday season, but this would not pan out. Extreme went through development hell that was so horrendous. Both of the main programmers moved out of their apartments into the office because they spent almost their whole time working on the game. Eventually they got really sick due to being overworked, so Extreme was cancelled. Now there's a lot more to the story besides that you can find online, however the bottom line is this game was cursed. And honestly, the weird looking gameplay we have of it does not look very fun to me. It might have been for the best it wasn't released. At least things in the gaming industry have gotten better since then. Oh. After Extreme died, Sonic's co-creator Yuji Naka, designer Takashi Iizuka, and other employees formed the second version of Sonic Team at Sega. They started making a new game in the series for the Saturn, but they felt that the console was too limiting. Thankfully, Sega informed Naka that their next system, the Dreamcast, will be much more powerful. Development shifted over there, and the struggling Saturn was left with no main Sonic game, which is pretty insane to think about. It's the equivalent of a Nintendo console having no Mario platformer. One thing I found interesting when researching this game is the Dreamcast was so early in development at this point that Sonic Team was able to directly request features from the hardware team. That's very unique. A challenge the developers encountered is because Sonic runs very fast, the levels had to be giant maps to accommodate this, which meant more memory would have to be used. In order to fit the allowed memory on the Dreamcast, each stage was split up into multiple areas. Another concern about the massive stages is they took a lot of time and effort to make, but the player is going to clear them in a few minutes. So the developers decided to add more characters besides Sonic to better utilize the levels. Speaking of the characters, Sonic Team had a hard time translating them into 3D while still looking good. At the same time, Sega was concerned that at this point, Sonic and his friends were dated and too cute. Ultimately, it was decided that they should be redesigned. They were given longer limbs and look more twisted than before. I'm a big fan of these redesigns, especially the new Sonic. He still looks cute, but he's even cooler than before, and I personally prefer him when he's a bit shorter. Although I kinda miss his brown eyes. The game was called Sonic Adventure, and it launched with the Dreamcast in December of 1998 in Japan. The rest of the world would have to wait till fall 1999 to play it. I was not one of those people, because I kind of wasn't alive at the time. Although I do remember when I eventually got the game. My family was at this party where my dad won money, and he was so happy about this that he offered to take me and my brother to GameStop right before it closed. Now he hated when we played video games, so this is extremely surprising. I had just played the Sonic Mega Collection on the GameCube, so I grabbed Sonic Adventure DX, and my brother got Wind Waker, which is an incredible game. It was a pretty successful night, and I learned a really important lesson about my family that day that has always stuck with me. They love money. Also, since I'm already here, I'm just gonna remind you to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would really help me out. Thanks! I remember really enjoying Sonic Adventure as a kid. The gameplay was very fun, I liked the story, and I loved the soundtrack. The strange thing about the game though, is while I had a great time with it, I didn't replay it that much. But in my head, it's always been one of my favorite Sonic games. How could both of these statements be true? Well, it's a bit complicated. Sonic Adventure opens with the mysterious FMV that shows a city under attack, a giant Eggman ship taking off, and is that a purple cat? It's a really confident intro that gives little context and makes you excited to play the game to figure out what's going on. The big question Adventure had to answer is how do you take the gameplay from the Genesis games and translate that to 3D? The devs decided to keep what still works and retool what doesn't. For example, running fast through stages and exploring different routes both work in 3D, which is why those are the same as before. But other features like loops and jumping into enemies at high speed are much trickier to implement. That's why those have been redesigned. Before you run through a loop, there's always a dash pad to help you get through it without causing any physics issues. And Sonic was given a new ability to help him hit enemies in 3D. It's called the homing attack, where if you double tap the jump button, he locks onto a badnik to attack them. And when you're not near an enemy, the move acts like an air dash that helps out with platforming. Now it is still possible to hit enemies by simply jumping into them, but it's much less precise in 3D, so I think the homing attack was a good solution. Slopes are another aspect that was changed. There's much less of them than before, and while you still run faster down them, the levels are no longer designed in a way where you can use that speed to launch yourself upwards. Heck, Sonic can't even roll up into a ball anymore. He can only run and spin dash. These changes are contentious among some fans because they arguably simplify the gameplay. While that may be true, I understand why Sonic Team made these changes, and they don't bother me. What I care about is if the gameplay is fun, and it is. It's not as enjoyable as being in a cult, but it's still good. Playing through the stages is pretty fun, and Sonic controls almost perfectly. For the first 3D game in the series, they hit it out of the park with how smooth he feels. I also adore all the set pieces in the levels. They're incredibly memorable, and even though most of them are automated, they're still really impressive and make the experience feel like an actual adventure. How could you not love being chased by a giant whale or running down a skyscraper? It's awesome. You know what else is great? The spin dash. It's extremely helpful in this game for accessing mini shortcuts, especially if you use it on a slope. It might be the best version of the move across the whole series. Okay, my next point is very minor. I am a big fan of Sonic's running animation in this game, and I wish he did it more often. Sega, please bring this back. Video games and animations are the only time where this movement looks cool, and we need more of it. So I like Sonic's gameplay, but the game isn't just about him. There are other characters in Sonic Adventure with their own campaigns. How many? 6 total. That is a lot. For reference, Sonic 3 and K only had 3 characters, so they doubled the amount. This was super ambitious. And unfortunately, now is when we need to start talking about problems. While there are a ton of characters in this game, not all of them are fun to play as. Let's start with Tails. He plays as you would expect. He's almost the exact same as Sonic, except he can fly. And wow, his flight is much faster than usual in this game, so he can kinda break the stages. To be fair, the devs try to account for this. The goal of Sonic stages are just to reach the end, but when you play as Tails, you need to do this and get there before Sonic. However, you can fly and he can't, so it's a very easy race. Oh well, I appreciate the effort, and at least Tails is fun to play as. Knuckles also made a great transition to 3D. Gliding around the stages and climbing walls is still enjoyable. Tails and him can't spin dash anymore, though they can still roll around, and now they can use melee attacks instead. Knuckles' levels have an interesting gimmick to them. They're about treasure hunting, where you're looking for 3 pieces of the Master Emerald. The locations are randomized each playthrough, meaning the stages are a bit different every time. You search through them until this radar goes off, and it helps you locate each piece. I enjoy these levels because they're generally quick, and it's fun gliding around as Knuckles in a large space. The radar was a really good idea, so the player doesn't get frustrated looking for the emerald pieces. I would have preferred if the goal of the stages was just to reach the end, but whatever, this works. Amy is playable for the first time, and she's a bit different than the other characters we're used to. She's much slower and doesn't curl into a ball when she jumps. In order to attack enemies, she has to swing a hammer in the air or on the ground. And if you use the hammer when you're running, it launches her high up into the air. Playing as Amy is fine, but it's kinda weird that her speed is so low. It makes sense in universe that she's not as fast as Sonic and his friends, however it makes her playthrough not as fun, because you're basically just playing a regular platformer instead of a Sonic game. The only other feature to talk about with Amy is her stages are about running away from a robot called Zero. Not that Zero.
No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
The thing is, even if the robot catches up to you, it takes him so long to attack that you can always just hit him away. It's a fake gimmick in my opinion. The next guy is brand new. His name is E102 Gamma, and he's one of Eggman's robots, which is a fun idea for a playable character. Unfortunately, he doesn't live up to this potential. Gamma can lock onto enemies and then automatically shoot at them. His levels operate on a countdown, and you can earn more time by hitting multiple badniks at once. Although I never even pay attention to the timer because it's extremely generous. What we're left with is a character who runs through the stages, presses the B button a lot, and that's basically it. It works, but it's not that engaging because you're not even aiming at the enemies. And like Amy, he's kinda slow. Now we get to everyone's favorite character, Big the Cat. He's definitely, idiosyncratic. His levels are all about fishing for his friend Froggy. I'm not kidding. I know everyone says this, but why is this in a Sonic game? Fishing is not exciting, and it's incredibly out of place here. And Froggy can be a real pain to catch sometimes if you don't know what you're doing. I forget how to play as Big every playthrough, so his stages are always a struggle at first. Plus he's really slow, which is also not fun. He's easily the worst character, but at least his gameplay isn't bad. I think it works well for how a fishing game should play. It's just out of place. I can't even say it's boring because I'm too confused why I'm playing this. So those are the characters. Essentially Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are solid, but the rest don't fit in well, even though playing as them is okay. I can appreciate how ambitious they were in designing these guys. They all feel distinct from each other, and there's a ton of variety to the gameplay between high-speed platforming, an early third-person shooter, and fishing. The main issue I have with these characters is to fully complete the game, you need to play as everyone and finish their campaigns. This unlocks the conclusion to the story. So Sonic Adventure becomes a mess, where half the characters aren't fun to play as, but are mandatory. And this is the main reason why I don't replay this game often. I want to see the full story, but I need to play as these guys to do so, and that's annoying. As aforementioned, the characters share stages with each other. There's 11 regular levels, and you'll visit each one with 3 different characters. They're often in different sections of the stage, and because of the distinct gameplay styles, this rarely feels repetitive or lazy. For example, when you play the level Red Mountain as Sonic, he goes through the outside and the volcano section. Then in Knuckles' story, he only explores the outside area, and it feels different, because he's flying around exploring the stage. And when you play the level as Gamma, it takes place entirely within the volcano section, and you're shooting at everything the whole time. But there are shared events between the different characters that are recycled. Such as when Sonic fights Knuckles and Chaos 4 back to back, you need to replay these 2 boss fights once as Tails in his campaign, and then again as Knuckles. The fights are the exact same, yet you're playing them 3 times, which I'm not a fan of. I think the saving grace for the weaker characters in this game is not every campaign is the same length. Sonic easily has the largest story. He has the biggest stages, and he plays through 10 of them. Beating his campaign took me 2.5 hours. On the other hand, Big's levels are much shorter, and he only has 4 of them. And then Amy just has 3 stages. I think half of her campaign is watching cutscenes. Both of these stories I beat in 50 minutes. So at least you're not stuck playing as these guys for that long, but I still would have preferred it if Amy, Big, and Gamma were left out, and they spent more time developing Knuckles and Tails. When I replay this game, I try to give myself the best possible experience. What this means is I start with the worst characters, and then end off with my favorites. Well, kinda. Sonic is the best character, and I play his story first, because he's the only one available at default before you unlock everyone else. Then once that's over, I go right into Big the Cat to get him out of the way. Next up is Amy, then Gamma, followed by Knuckles, and I end with Tails. It's extremely weird, but I think it's funny, and Sonic and Tails have so much overlap in their campaigns that I genuinely prefer spacing those 2 characters far apart from each other. New to the series are the adventure fields or hub worlds, large maps you explore to access the levels and locations in the story. People are mixed on if hub worlds should be in Sonic games. Speaking for myself, I prefer when they're not there because the games have a faster pace when you just go from level to level. But the hub worlds are generally fine with me. It is neat running around these maps and talking to the NPCs. In Adventure, you can even interact with the other characters sometimes. The main issue with hub worlds is if you have to spend too much time in them, and thankfully that isn't the case in this game. Usually you just run around the map for a minute or 2 to get an item to unlock a level, and then bam, you're in the stage. Aside from the levels and the adventure fields, there are some boss fights. Most of these are simple and easy, especially the character battles that have some really funny voice lines.
Oh no!
In the levels, you can once again get power-ups from item boxes. All the ones we know and love from Sonic 3 and K Return, except for the water and fire shields. And the electric shield no longer gives Sonic a double jump, but hey, at least we got the homing attack now. As you play through the different stories, every character can find equipment that are permanent upgrades. For instance, Sonic can get the Lightspeed shoes, where if you charge up a spin dash for long enough, he can dash through a path of rings. Another notable upgrade are the shovel claws for Knuckles that let him dig through the ground for items and emerald pieces. Most of these are situational, though I still enjoy finding them, and it's cool that your characters wear them afterwards, even in other stories. Returning to the stages, I remember during this playthrough that I don't enjoy playing them with Sonic as much as I did in the Genesis games. And I couldn't figure out why, because they're really well designed and fun. But now I know the reason. The levels are missing an added incentive. In the previous games, the main goal was to reach the end of the level, but there were also optional special stages you had to work to get into. They were a form of skill expression, since you needed to beat the stages without getting hit much, or explore them to find the giant rings. Then, you had to complete the special stage, and at the end when you got the Chaos Star mode, it felt rewarding. Sonic Adventure doesn't have special stages or extra objectives, which I was missing because just beating the levels isn't as fun to me. Okay, technically that's not true. There are extra objectives. Every stage in the game has 3 levels, C, B, and A. The first time you beat a stage, it's the C version, and then if you return to the stage, you can play the B version. And completing level B unlocks the level A version. These different levels have added tasks that make the stages more complicated, like requiring 50 rings at the end, or reaching the goal in a time limit. Playing these versions of the stages was very fun, since I had to play well. Especially the time limit ones, because you need to reach the shortcuts to have a chance. However, the issue I have with this system is I need to beat the less interesting level C to unlock levels B and A, so my first time playing the stages isn't as fun as it could be. This could have been fixed if they gave you all 3 objectives at once, and the only required one was the simple C version, aka just beat the level. And because I have to replay every stage for these extra objectives, I usually don't bother. But I do appreciate that they're in the game, and thankfully this issue is fixed in the sequel. It's the one thing that personally bugs me about the Great Sonic stages. The last topic I want to discuss about the core gameplay is the camera. Like many other early 3D games, it's not great since the developers were still figuring out how to make it work. There's a lot of times where it freaks out or shows you something it probably shouldn't. I feel bad critiquing this because Adventure is one of the first 3D platformers, so of course the camera is going to be problematic. But even with that context, it's kind of hard to go back to. When you beat a stage, you get a collectible called an emblem. You can also receive these by completing the level B and A missions, searching the hub worlds, and beating minigames. In the Dreamcast release, you don't get anything for finding all the emblems, but this isn't the case with the GameCube port, Sonic Adventure DX. Here, getting emblems unlocks the Game Gear Sonic games, and obtaining all of them unlocks the playable Metal Sonic, which is a decent reward. While we're on the topic, the GameCube version of this game was released on Steam, and that's what I played for the video. I have some issues with SADX because it changed the character models, made the lighting worse, and used uglier textures. There were some great improvements though, like updating the game to 60 FPS and letting you skip cutscenes. Now I don't own a Dreamcast, so I used some graphics mods in my playthrough that basically make the DX version look like the original. I think this is the best and most convenient way to play the game. There's a lot more you can discuss about the differences between each version, but that's all I have to say about the topic. Besides the stages, there are some optional modes you can play through. The DX version added mission mode, where you complete certain tasks the game gives you. These are fine, I guess, although they weren't very interesting to me. A feature a lot of fans love is the Chow Garden. In these locations, you raise these cute little blue creatures called the Chow. You can pet them, feed them animals to raise their stats, give them nicknames, and even race them. I usually skip the Chow Garden because it's not really my thing, but I had fun just messing around here when I was recording footage. It's a good time. Graphically, Sonic Adventure is great. It looks dated nowadays, but compared to games on the N64 and PlayStation, it's phenomenal, and it was only a launch title for the Dreamcast. I love the way the characters look. I think there's something so charming about their low polygon models. They even move around a bit during the cutscenes. It's stiff, but I appreciate the effort. And the FMVs look really good. I think Sonic Team agrees with me because you see some of them multiple times, namely the one where the egg carrier takes off. The soundtrack is incredible. It sounds more like rock music, which I think fits nicely for Sonic as a character. So in stages like Windy Valley, you'll hear a lot more guitars than before, and I'm personally all for it. Almost every song is great, and they've been stuck in my head for the last 15 years. I think Skydeck is my personal favorite stage theme right now. Another addition to the series are vocal tracks. Almost all of these are connected to one of the playable characters, and they're also really good. They're definitely more eclectic. Like Knuckles' theme is literally a rap song where the lyrics are incredible. Listen to this. You can call me Knuckles. Unlike Sonic, I don't chuckle. I'd rather flex my muscles. That is so perfect. I know Knuckles says oh no, but I'm saying oh yes. The lead composer, Jun Sano, really hit it out of the park with this music. Adventure added full voice acting to the series, which was a big leap considering there wasn't even dialogue in the past games. So we get to know a lot more about all these characters, and I think that's cool. As you can probably guess for a late 90s video game, the voice acting itself isn't amazing or anything, but I still enjoy it. I really like Ryan Drummond and Dean Bristow as Sonic and Eggman. Ryan really captures how Sonic is a free spirit who wants to save everyone and stop Robotnik.
I am Dr. Robotnik, the greatest scientific genius in the world.
Whatever you say, Eggman.
Enough!
Easily the worst performance is Corey Bringus' Tails, which you definitely cannot blame him for because he was literally a child when he recorded this game. I don't know why Sonic Team didn't just hire a professional voice actor instead of an actual child like every animated TV show does. We got some really funny line delivery out of this at least.
Hey Knuckles, what's up? That's Eggman. I wonder what happened to Sonic.
Okay, y'all have waited long enough. Let's talk about the story. It's much more complicated than the Genesis games, and there are so many more cutscenes to watch between the 6 characters. The basic premise of Sonic Adventure is there's a liquid creature called Chaos who transforms into a stronger form when he gets a Chaos Emerald. Eggman wants to keep feeding Chaos the emeralds, so Chaos will destroy Station Square, the main hub road. With the city gone, he plans to build an amusement park called Robotnik Land. Yeah, that is why he wants to decimate an entire city. I love this game. Sonic's story is about him repeatedly fighting Eggman and Chaos until he defeats both of them. That's literally it. Tails' story is mostly the same, since he's partnered with Sonic for a lot of it, but towards the end, he learns to become more independent and defeats Eggman all by himself. It's not an amazing character arc, but I'll take what I can get. By the way, at the end of Tails' playthrough, Eggman launches a missile at the city when he's still inside it, and it would have killed everyone including himself if it wasn't a dud. Knuckles' story begins with Chaos destroying the Master Emerald, which crashes Angel Island into the ocean. So Knuckles needs to go and collect all its pieces. Along the way, he runs into the other characters, and somehow gets tricked by Eggman into fighting Sonic again.
Way to go, Knucklehead!
At the end, he restores the Master Emerald. In Amy's story, she protects this blue bird, or Blue Flicky, from Eggman's robot Zero. Eventually, she sees that the Flicky has a family and helps reunite them. I guess the point of Amy's plot is in Sonic CD, she was a damsel in distress, but by the end of Adventure, she becomes a hero herself by helping the Flicky and defeating Zero. That's a neat character arc. And I enjoy her interactions with Sonic in this game.
Listen, this birdie seems to be in trouble, so you need to be his bodyguard for a while.
You must be kidding!
Gamma has the best story by far. He starts off as a mindless machine who serves Eggman, but after witnessing Robotnik's cruel treatment of the other E-Series robots and interacting with Amy and the Blue Flicky, he starts to rebel against his programming. First he helps Amy escape, and then he saves his E-Series brothers by destroying their robot bodies so they can escape Eggman's control. After freeing his brother Beta, Gamma's body is destroyed, and he too is freed. This ties in with Amy's story too, where he reunites with the Blue Flicky because they were a family before Eggman captured him. It's a good plot getting to see things from the POV of the animals Eggman captures and transforms. And in this and Tails' story, Eggman is a lot more sinister, which makes sense because these characters will be much more afraid of him than Sonic.
You fool. Away, before I make mincemeat out of you.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared.
Big's plot is a joke. His friend Froggy keeps running away, so Big chases after him. He's completely oblivious to everything else going on, and that's the comedy. But it's not very funny, so like his gameplay, it's mostly pointless. The one character I haven't mentioned yet is Tikal. She's a spirit who sorta acts like your guide in the game. If you interact with her, she gives you some hints on how to play the game or where to go. She's an echidna spirit who interacts with all the characters by showing them different flashbacks. By playing every campaign, we learn the backstory of Sonic Adventure. A long time ago, Tikal's father was a warmonger who sought to harness the power of the Chaos Emeralds and the Master Emerald. She found the altar where the emeralds were and befriended the Chow living there. This led her to meeting Chaos, who is the guardian of the Chow. Tikal tried to stop her father, but he wouldn't listen, and he attacked the Chow when he tried to steal the emeralds. Chaos was outraged by this and destroyed the attackers. In order to stop Chaos from going on a rampage, Tikal sealed both of them inside the Master Emerald. She helps out the other characters because Chaos can destroy the world if he obtains all 7 emeralds. That's the basic gist of the story. Overall, it's fine. I appreciate that there are some character arcs, even if they're a bit underdeveloped. I can definitely admire that the plot is more complex than just stopping Eggman. And I like that we get to learn more about the echidnas, although I think more could have been done with this premise. Like Knuckles gets to see his extinct people in Tikal's flashbacks, but he's unaware of what's going on, meaning he doesn't get to talk about it or learn anything. I feel like they could have done a lot more with him, since he's one of the most important characters in this game. Now we can discuss Super Sonic's campaign. All the early 3D Sonic games conclude with these last story sections, and they primarily consist of a series of cutscenes and the final boss. In this mode, we find out Chaos is still alive, and he obtains all the emeralds despite the best efforts of Sonic and his friends. We then circle back to the opening cutscene, where Chaos completely fled Station Square, and we see him as the monster, Perfect Chaos. No one can stop him in this form. Eggman shows up with the egg carrier, and Perfect Chaos obliterates it in one hit. But then Chaos releases the emeralds, and apparently he was only using their negative energy, so Sonic is able to use their positive energy to become Super Sonic. Okay, sure. We've arrived at the final boss, and the main theme of the game, Open Your Heart, plays. I love this song. It's by the band Crush 40, and we're going to be discussing them a lot more in the future. I actually have a great memory when they played this song at the Sonic Symphony concert I went to. Hearing it in a massive theater while watching Super Sonic fight an incredible monster on the big screen was genuinely amazing. Then you add the visuals of the battle taking place in a destroyed city, and they ended with the awesome clips from the intro, and man, it was wonderful. It was my favorite part of that concert. Absolute perfection. During the fight, Super Sonic deals damage to Chaos by running into him at high speed, so try to avoid his attacks and you'll be okay. I wish the second phase didn't change the music. It's a good track, but it doesn't compare to the intensity of fighting the final boss with a rock song in the background. This is the only time you can play as Super Sonic in the game, and confining him to the final boss fight becomes a pattern going forward. A lot of fans are bothered by this, but you know me, I don't enjoy playing as Super Sonic, so I'm okay with this. With Chaos defeated, he reverts back to normal and sees that the Chow are alive and live in peace. Tikal thanks everyone for helping and departs with Chaos.
All's well that ends well, right?
Well, the city's completely destroyed, and millions of people are probably drowned, so no. That includes everyone you just saved from the missile attack, by the way. Good job! Wait, do you guys think Tails is trying to cover up how everyone failed to stop this disaster? Like, in-universe, are there gonna be perfect Chaos deniers, with Tails leading the movement? Oh my god. I gotta get out of Station Square. I'm moving to San Francisco. Sonic sees Eggman taking off and chases after him. Some things never change. And that was Sonic Adventure. This game is very weird to critique. On the one hand, I have a lot of nostalgia for it, and I love the redesigns, music, and control. The game did a solid job at taking Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles from 2D into 3D. But I personally think they're all less fun to play as, and the other 3 characters aren't enjoyable. While the variety in their gameplay is cool, it makes the game harder to go back to because I want to play a fast-paced platformer, and fishing is not that. Sonic Adventure is a good game that has unfortunately not aged well due to its ambition. I respect it a lot, and I'll always be a big fan of it, even if I don't revisit the game much. Thankfully, Sega was able to take what worked here and figure out how to improve the formula for the sequel. And they made something truly special.
Hey, I'll play with you some other time.
What are you, anyway?
What you see is what you get. Just a guy that loves adventure. I'm Sonic the Hedgehog.
Well, we've reached the big one. To put it simply, Sonic Adventure 2 is the most iconic game in the entire series. It's the one almost every fan has played and replayed to death. Its stages and characters are so memorable that even people who have never played a Sonic game are familiar with them. The diverse soundtrack is one of the greatest in all of gaming. And the story is so impactful that it sticks with you long after it's over. Yeah, I'm praising the story in a Sonic game. Adventure 2 is truly special. This is the game most Gen Z fans like myself grew up with, and have tons of nostalgia for. Even when I'm just thinking about SA2, it has a certain aura to it. There was so much confidence and charm here that really stuck with me. And after replaying the game, I'm happy to say it still holds up. It is a flawed game where some odd choices were made, but its highs are some of the greatest you will ever play. This is Sonic Adventure 2.
Don't leave without me! I want to help Sonic too!
Oh no!
After Sonic Adventure released in Japan, many Sonic team members moved to the US to create its Western localization. These included people like Yuji Naka and Takashi Iizuka. They created Sonic Team USA so they could better manage the series' image outside Japan. You see, the funny thing is, Sonic has always been more popular in the West than his home country. If you're wondering why this is, I think it's because we're dumber. After the localized version of Adventure was completed, Sega greenlit a sequel that Sonic Team USA would develop. Iizuka would serve as the director and art designer, while Naka would be the producer. The devs wanted to make the game more action-oriented than its predecessor. This meant the hub worlds and the slower gameplay styles of Big and Amy were removed. They also wanted to place more emphasis on the story, so some new characters were added. The first was a dark rival to Sonic, called Shadow the Hedgehog. Similarly, the character of Rouge the Bat would serve as a foil to Knuckles. One idea the team wanted to implement was a branching storyline where the player could make certain choices that change the story. However, this would not make it into the final game. Sonic Team USA was located in San Francisco, and some of the levels were directly inspired by this location. Most notably, the red bridges and Radical Highway that resemble the Golden Gate Bridge, and the first stage City Escape that just is San Francisco. I have a few friends from the Bay Area, and I visited the city for the first time 2 years ago to meet up with them. While I was there, I could not stop thinking about Sonic Adventure 2 when I was walking around. It is actually insane how steep the hills are in real life. The game came out on the Dreamcast in June of 2001, which was only a few months after Sega discontinued the console due to poor sales. Sega then became a third-party developer, meaning Adventure 2 is the final Sonic game released on one of their consoles. The team worked on porting the game over to the GameCube as Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, which is the version I grew up with. I don't have a fun story of getting this game like I did for SA1. My family walked into a GameStop one day, and my mom bought it for me. But I remember having a great time playing it. I thought Adventure 2 was extremely fun, and I would play it all the time as a kid, teenager, and now an adult. It's always been one of my favorite games in the series, and it's time to talk about why. SA2 is one of the best intros to any game I've ever played. First off, the opening cutscene is so cool. It introduces us to all the characters like they're in a TV show or something. And this shot of Sonic and Shadow in front of the moon is awesome. It's one of those images that sticks with you. Then we start the hero story, and we're thrown right into a crazy scenario. For reasons unknown to us, Sonic's been arrested by an organization called GUN, the Army in the Sonic universe. He defeats everyone on board before making his escape. We now go into the first level City Escape, or San Francisco Zone. We're immediately snowboarding down the hills and performing tricks on the ramps that the game rewards us for in the top left corner. We learn Sonic can grind on rails now, and the game rewards us for that too. Oh, and there's a really catchy vocal track playing in the background. Wow, this is only the intro stage, and it feels like a roller coaster. And the ending set piece where you have to outrun a massive gun truck is unforgettable. It's an amazing stage. Next we have an admittedly janky boss fight against a gun vehicle. But after that, we meet Shadow the Hedgehog and learn he's the reason Sonic was arrested. Sonic runs towards him, but he's able to use a Chaos Emerald to teleport. He calls himself the ultimate life form and vanishes, leaving Sonic to get apprehended again. This is only the first 5 minutes, but I'm already so interested. Who is Shadow and what does he want? How is Sonic gonna get out of jail? And when do I get to play one of those incredible levels again? SA2 hooks you immediately. I jumped the gun there, so let me go back and explain the structure. This game has 2 campaigns to complete. There's the hero story where you play as Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and the dark story, where you play as Eggman, Shadow, and Rouge. Like Adventure 1, there's 6 playable characters, but thankfully there's only 3 gameplay styles. Speed stages for Sonic and Shadow, shooting stages for Eggman and Tails, and treasure hunting levels for Knuckles and Rouge, because as we all know, Chuckles is
the world's greatest treasure hunter.
There are some slight differences between the hero and dark characters in terms of the upgrades, but they're essentially the same. This is a welcome change because it makes the game a more focused and consistent experience than SA1. The biggest universal change to the gameplay is the evolution of the point system. Every Sonic platformer so far has had a score that you increase by doing things like collecting rings and defeating enemies. However, a high score only helped you get an extra life in a continue, so I barely paid attention to it because it usually wasn't important. When you finish a stage in Adventure 2, you receive a ranking that's based on your score and the time it took you to beat the level. Now there's a clear reward to getting a high score. And there are more ways than ever to get a lot of points. You can target and destroy multiple enemies at once in the shooting levels, find the emerald pieces quickly in the treasure hunting stages, and as I already mentioned, grind on rails and perform tricks in the speed stages. These bonuses are preceded by words like cool, awesome, perfect, that are strangely satisfying. I know I'm being complimented by a video game, but it still feels great. There are many other ways to get points aside from this, such as destroying a golden beetle hidden in the stages, or the methods from the previous games, like collecting rings or jumping on multiple enemies before landing. The other universal changes are checkpoints now give you power-ups based on how many rings you have, the upgrades are found in the levels, and instead of Tikal, this guy called Omochao gives you advice. I know a lot of people hate this character, but he didn't annoy me during this playthrough. Although I don't like looking at him. His metallic eyes look so dead inside like a serial killer. Ugh. The speed stages are an evolution of Sonic's playthrough from the previous game. The introduction of rail grinding is visually cool and fits in perfectly with Sonic and Shadow as characters. The way it works is if you press the action button when you're grinding, you can duck to go faster. If you're next to a different rail, you can hold towards it and press the jump button to hop over. You can lean yourself during turns to keep up your speed, and you can perform tricks on rails that curve upwards at the end. These mechanics are fun, but sadly the rail hopping and balancing are janky, so I usually don't bother with those. The speed characters have some new abilities in this game. They can somersault, which helps them get under tight spaces, and is great at taking care of grounded enemies. The Lightspeed Dash upgrade from SA1 returns, and it's much more fluid because instead of standing in place and charging it up, you just press a button to instantly dash through the rings. Sonic has an exclusive item called the Bounce Bracelet. It lets him bounce higher in the air and is useful for maintaining a combo on multiple enemies. These are all welcome additions, however I have one small issue with them. They're all mapped to the same button, which you also use to spin dash, so sometimes I try to lightspeed dash, and instead Sonic bounces down to his depth. Meanwhile, there are two face buttons that do nothing, so it would have been better if one of those performed the lightspeed dash or something. They simplified the controls a bit too much here. What makes the speed stages so fun in this game is the level design. The pacing is extremely quick, and you're constantly rewarded for playing well with the new point system. A perfect example of this is Sonic's second level Metal Harbor, where you can earn bonuses for jumping onto these rails at high speed and comboing multiple enemies with homing attacks. Then at the end, there's a countdown and you need to jump onto this missile before it takes off. However, that doesn't get you a good enough score for an A rank, which is the highest in this game. If you want that, you also need to take an alternate route where it's more likely you'll run out of time and die, but it nets you more points if you're successful. So when you chain all that together and have the perfect run through the stage, it feels awesome to see the A rank you worked for. All the Sonic and Shadow levels are like this, and it's what makes them so addicting. They're non-stop action and speed that actively test your skill, more so than any of the previous games. And I love that. These are some of the best stages in the series, and it's the main reason everyone loves Adventure 2. There aren't many other games that play like this. The ranking is what ties it all together for me, and it's what was missing from SA1. Another task on the stage that's completely optional and rewards you for solid gameplay. I'm really happy they added these, and they become a series staple. These levels do have some issues I should point out. They're much more linear than the previous games, meaning there's less to explore when you replay them. And I don't enjoy some of the gimmicks. Like running along the walls of Pyramid Cave feels janky, and the artificial chaos enemies in Crazy Gadget are very irritating. In general, Shadow's stages are worse than Sonic's. He has less of them, and they're not as fun to play through. Part of the problem is that two of them look identical to some Sonic stages, although at least they have different level design. Characters going through the same stages happens in this game, like it did with SA1, however I prefer when the level is shared between characters with different gameplay styles. For example, Eggman goes through Metal Harbor too, but it feels more unique because he and Sonic play very differently from each other. The speed stages are definitely not perfect, however they are so incredible to play through that I'm willing to overlook my small complaints with them. These levels are everything I want in a Sonic game. My favorite of them is the last Sonic stage, Final Rush. I really love racing down the grind rails and performing tricks on them, while the planet is directly below you in the background. The shooting stages play similarly to Gamma's campaign from Adventure 1. Eggman and Tails pilot mechs that lock onto and shoot a ton of enemies on their way to the goal ring. These levels are better than Gamma's because it's more interesting when the game encourages you to lock onto as many enemies as possible to maximize your bonuses. And the enemies shoot back, so you need to actively dodge them to get points. This is harder than in the speed stages because the mechs are slow and tanky. Getting hit isn't too bad though, since you have a health bar that can be refilled with rings and a health kit power-up. Although try not to die, because that causes you to lose all your points, and you might have to restart the stage for an A rank. I think I enjoy these levels. They're well designed, and it's satisfying getting massive point bonuses, especially in a stage like Cosmic Wall, which is flooded with enemies to combo. And the level has a cool gimmick, where because you're in space, the hover upgrade lets you fly, and that assists Eggman when he's platforming. The problems with this gameplay style are more in concept than execution. Playing as a slow-moving mech in a Sonic game feels out of place. This was probably done so the existing enemies would be challenging, but it still feels wrong. I wish the mechs moved faster. The other issue is it doesn't make much sense that this is Tails' gameplay. Okay, I get that he's an engineer and transformed the tornado into a mech. However, why does he spend the whole game inside this machine? Wouldn't it be much faster to fly around? Before SA2 was released, there were rumors that Tails wasn't going to be playable, and that upset a lot of fans. I don't know if that's true or not, but it does feel like he was added later in development as an Eggman clone. Especially since almost all of his levels are recycled Eggman stages. I'm not the biggest fan of playing as Tails in the other games, so this doesn't bother me, but it is weird. At least you can play as him outside the mech in the Chow Garden. And it was a great idea to have Eggman as a playable character in this game. Overall, I'll say the shooting levels are decent, even if they are confusing. I don't know, maybe my brain's just really small, and I can't wrap my head around them. Who's to say? Oh boy, the treasure hunting levels. The first thing we need to talk about is every single Knuckles stage has a rap song. And they're kinda fire. I don't listen to much rap music, but I like these. Partly on an ironic level, and partly on a non-ironic level. Once again, the lyrics are absolute perfection. It's like Shakespeare wrote this stuff. Yeah, Rouge, she's sexy and smooth. A double-cross spy thief that's out for my jewels. Huh, I'm feeling her in mysterious ways.
What was that all about?
Oh my god, this game is made for children. Knuckles, please control yourself. Whoever decided Knuckles' scream rap music was a genius. We should make that guy president of Earth or something. Despite having the greatest soundtrack ever, these stages are sadly the worst in the game. It's weird to say that because I like Knuckles' gameplay in SA1, and it's mostly intact here. But they made some questionable choices. Like the radar is less useful. It can only detect the first emerald piece, meaning if you're right next to a different one, it won't activate. This change is very intentional because you get a massive point bonus if you find a shard out of order. For the longest time, I thought this was the big problem with these stages, but there's actually a mod that remedies this issue. It did improve the experience, and yet, I still found myself getting lost. The real issue with the treasure hunting stages are the level design and the radar's detection. Most of these maps are massive. If you want to look everywhere, it can take you minutes to check out each location. Adventure 1 was not like this. All the stages were small sandboxes where you didn't have to spend much time looking for the emerald pieces. And the radar in SA2 is weaker, which makes it more difficult to find the shards. What this means is you can spend a lot of time ransacking these levels looking for one emerald piece that's in a super weird location. I had the dumbest experience with this when I played the stage Aquatic Mine this playthrough. I needed to change the water level to enter this one specific path to get the first emerald piece. The second shard was relatively easy to find in comparison, but then I could not find the last piece for the life of me. After about 10 minutes, it turns out it was in that same weird path, but the emerald piece wasn't even visible with the camera angle you're given. That's so stupid. These collectibles are already so obscure that they should not be hidden like that. At least there are monitors that give you hints on where to look, but a lot of them are vague and not that helpful unless you're super familiar with these levels. Also, if you're trying to A-rank these stages, then using multiple hints for one piece lowers your bonus. So I try not to care too much about my ranking when I play these stages, but it's hard not to, because I want to do well in them. The worst level in the whole game is Rouge's final mission, Mad Space. Emphasis on Mad because oh my god, this sucks. The stage is giant and it takes too long to go from place to place. Plus there's a gravity gimmick that's super janky. And the cryptic hints either tell you the opposite of where the emerald piece is located, or they're written backwards, meaning you need to pause the game to decipher what they're telling you. I don't even know how to read in the first place, and they want me to do it backwards?
No way!
To be fair, I do like some of these stages, such as Security Hall and Wild Canyon. These are respectably sized maps that are fun to play through because you can quickly run around them. I wish all the treasure hunting levels were like this. The devs either needed to shrink the stages or buff the radar with more levels of detection. They tried to have their cake and eat it too, and it didn't work as well as it could have. One thing I thought about during my playthrough is they put a lot of effort into designing these expansive maps. I think it would have been better if they put that dedication into giving Knuckles and Rouge their own set of linear stages like Sonic 3 and K. Oh well, the point is these levels are the weakest in the game. So the speed stages are amazing, the shooting levels are kinda fun, and the treasure hunting is not very good. SA2 is pretty evenly divided between these three gameplay styles, and it makes the experience inconsistent in quality, although less so than Adventure 1. If I just look at the Sonic and Shadow stages, SA2 is a platforming masterpiece. The thing is, they're only a third of the game, and when I factor in the other characters, I would say the gameplay balances out to just being good. And yet, the speed stages are so great that I can't help myself. I love Adventure 2. Even though objectively there are better Sonic games that are fun the whole way through, the peaks in SA2 elevate the whole experience for me.
This game of tag is boring. I'm out of here.
There's a lot more about the gameplay to talk about. Since the adventure fields have been removed, the game moves along at a brisk pace. The only separation between stages are boss fights and cutscenes that are generally short. This means you're able to play the game with little downtime in between the action. I'm personally a fan of this since it makes for a more exciting experience. It also makes the game shorter than Adventure 1, and I'm completely fine with that because I don't need these games to be very lengthy. On the topic of boss fights, most of them are character battles that can be really awkward, although at least they're short. They're about the same quality as the battles from SA1. Speaking of that game, the camera is now so much better. It's easier to control and is less likely to get stuck in a weird place. It's not perfect, but it's a great step in the right direction. The Chow Garden returns, and there's more to do. For example, you can enter them into Chow Karate and take them to Chow Kindergarten, which is cute. Once again, I didn't play much of this mode because it's not for me, so sorry if you were expecting a Chow Garden deep dive. What little I played of it was fun though. Similar to Adventure 1, each stage has multiple missions that can be chosen on a stage select screen. These have objectives such as getting 100 rings or clearing the hard mode version of the level. I didn't play much of these since I felt satisfied with my story mode playthrough where I always try to A-rank the speed stages. Clearing each mission gets you an emblem, and there are 180 total in the game. Your reward for getting all of them and A-ranking every mission is a playable Green Hill Zone, complete with the original level design and sound effects. SA2 was created for Sonic's 10th anniversary, so this level was a little treat for the fans at the time. Nowadays it's less impressive because I think we're all sick of this stage being shoved down our throats. However, SA2 did bring it back first. It's a little awkward since it's a 2D level and a 3D platformer, but I had a fun time getting the A rank, and it's the heart that counts. Hidden inside all the stages are cameos from Big the Cat. Once again, he's just a guy living his life who happens to always be where the action is. You can even get him to show up during some cutscenes if you press the A button. This is how you make his character work. It's funny seeing him in the background, but the joke is ruined when you have to play as him, because fishing is not enjoyable in a Sonic game. If you didn't know he was in SA2, it's probably because he was removed from the GameCube version for some reason. The graphics look much better than Adventure 1. All the characters and textures are more detailed, and the cutscenes are much less stiff. They honestly feel cinematic in comparison. At one point we get to see Sonic karate kick one of Eggman's robots. That would never happen in SA1. The soundtrack is awesome. It's still very rock focused, with other genres included as well, like the Knuckles rap songs. There's even more vocal tracks than before that are very catchy. I always get Eggman's theme stuck in my head after I play this game. One of the best songs is of course the track that plays during City Escape. I heard a story one time that one of the original singers played this song at a Sonic themed convention and forgot the lyrics as he was performing it. I couldn't find a source on this, so I'm not saying that happened. However, it is very funny to imagine. Unfortunately, the sound mixing in SA2 is very bad. The music can be too loud at times, and the English script is longer than the lip animations on the characters. The result is occasionally characters talk over each other.
You're comparing yourself to me? Huh. You're not even good enough to be
I'll
my
make you eat those words.
We should be landing soon.
The hatch doors are
Don't
open.
sweat it, Knuckles. The only thing in the cargo bay are those
What do you
Master
mean, don't
Emeralds.
sweat it?
Right?
Land the
Knock
shuttle
it
and
off,
let me out.
Knuckles.
Oh, and the lip syncing is very bad too. Thankfully it's funny, and future games have improved mixing. I would be remiss if I didn't discuss SA2 Battle. This is the version I'm playing because I grew up with it, and you probably did too. It's a more faithful port compared to SADX, however it does have some small flaws. Like some of the cutscenes are missing lighting and textures for some reason. Thankfully I'm playing the PC version, so I used a few mods to fix these up, because I wanted to have the best looking footage possible. I found out when I was making this video that apparently the grinding is broken on the Steam release. When you're leaning your character on the rails, the analog stick is more sensitive than it's supposed to be, so the mechanic doesn't work. Also, the sound mixing in Battle is even worse than the original game. The main innovation to SA2 Battle comes in the name. The multiplayer from the Dreamcast release was greatly expanded. You and a friend can play through smaller portions of every level in the game. You can use every character, and even some that aren't playable in story mode, such as Amy and Chaos Zero. There's a ton to do, and it's a great time. I have a lot of nostalgia for playing this mode with my brother as a kid. It's easily the best multiplayer in the main series. My only issue with it is Amy's homing attack voice line gets irritating fast.
Disappear!
Those are my thoughts on the Battle version. Overall, it's a very good port, and I think the small differences are interesting, which is why I wanted to point them out.
I promise you. Revenge!
It's finally time to discuss the plot. This is going to be fun. The narrative is divided between the Hero and Dark campaigns, which I'm going to combine for this recap. We begin with the Dark story, where Eggman breaks into Prison Island to find his grandfather Gerald Robotnik's research on Project Shadow. He discovers that the project is a black hedgehog named Shadow, who is similar to Sonic in his abilities. Shadow offers to work for Eggman and demands he obtain the Chaos Emeralds. Shadow then robs a bank because they had an emerald there, and everyone mistakes him for Sonic, despite the camera getting a very good look at him. This confusion is why Gunn arrested Sonic at the start of the Hero story. This isn't the only time that happens, by the way. Amy later makes the exact same mistake when she's right behind Shadow. A lot of people make fun of these moments and consider it a plot hole that people can mistake Sonic and Shadow since they look very different. I used to agree with this criticism, but then I figured it out. The characters in the Sonic universe, as far as we're aware, live relatively peacefully between animals and humans. If these two different species can get along, then maybe they progress past the point of caring about race. Maybe they can't even see color anymore. That's why everyone mistakes Shadow for Sonic. I can't see color. I don't even know what I look like. Am I purple? Blue? I don't know. Or it could just be lazy writing. On the bridge, Shadow gets a flashback to his friend Maria, and he promises her revenge against humanity. We're now at the opening of the Hero story, where Sonic meets Shadow and gets arrested again. Next, we see Chuckles and Rouge fighting over the Master Emerald. Rouge wants it because she's a treasure hunter. During their argument, Eggman tries to steal the emerald, so Chuckles breaks it to keep it out of his hands. He also establishes that the Master Emerald can nullify the Chaos Emeralds. Eggman and Shadow meet up at a space colony called the Ark, and Eggman learns that the colony has a weapon called the Eclipse Cannon, which can destroy the Earth if it's powered by all the Chaos Emeralds. Eggman wants to use the cannon to take over the world. Rouge then meets up with them and offers to help. Both campaigns converge at Prison Island, where Tails and Amy try to rescue Sonic, and Eggman, Shadow, and Rouge want to steal 3 Chaos Emeralds. We get a classic Amy-Sonic exchange here.
Did you see it? Where is it now?
If I tell ya, will you marry me?
No way!
I thought I had you this time.
The island is about to explode, and Rouge is trapped in a vault with the Chaos Emeralds. In the last second, Shadow saves her and uses the ability Chaos Control, which lets you teleport if you have one of the emeralds. With the Chaos Emeralds fueling the Eclipse Cannon, we get a really cool FMV where Eggman threatens the planet and splits the moon in half. He plans to destroy Earth in 24 hours unless the planet bows down to him. The heroes want to stop Eggman and discover he's on the Ark. In what has to be the craziest coincidence ever, Knuckles shows up out of a sewer grate that is conveniently right next to his friends. He didn't plan on this, he just happens to meet up with them in this super contrived way because the script says so. After boarding a rocket, the heroes make their way to the Ark. Meanwhile, we discover that Rouge is tricking Eggman, and she investigates Project Shadow. She's shocked that it's not the Shadow we know. Knuckles and Rouge go around the Ark collecting Master Emerald pieces before running into each other. Chuckles saves Rouge from falling into lava, and she gives him the emerald pieces, allowing him to fully restore it. We're now at the climax of the Hero and Dark campaigns, and honestly, it's epic. Tails has created a fake Chaos Emerald with the same properties as a real one. It will cause the Eclipse Cannon to fail, so Sonic rushes to place it inside. However, Eggman takes Amy hostage by pointing a gun at her, and demands Sonic give him the last Chaos Emerald.
You've turned into a big-time villain, Doctor.
Sonic tries to trick him using the fake one, but Eggman sees this coming and traps him in a capsule. He plans to kill Sonic by ejecting him into space. Man, Eggman is probably the most threatening in the adventure games. He does not mess around. Sonic is about to die and only has one option. Use Chaos Control with the fake emerald to maybe save himself. The capsule explodes, and it looks like Sonic has bit the dust. Tails fights Eggman to avenge his friend and defeats him. although Eggman sneaks away with the real emerald. We find out the Chaos Control worked, and there's only 20 minutes left to stop the Eclipse Cannon from destroying the planet.
I got it. Before the cannon fires, I'll slam dunk it in there.
Okay, I need to gush about Sonic in this story. Adventure 2 is my favorite depiction of him ever. He's a hero who's very confident in himself and has some funny quips.
Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies. I'm out of here. I like running better.
I thought that capsule you were in exploded in space.
You know, what can I say? I die hard.
I love Ryan Drummond's performance in this game. He perfectly transitions between joking around and being serious when the stakes are high. I think he's my favorite voice actor of the character. I like the other characters in the story as well. Eggman and Shadow are great, and Tails' voice acting is so bad that it's good.
Wait for me, okay, Sonic? I'm on my way.
Returning to the story, Shadow confronts Rouge, and we discover that she works for the US government. No wonder she's in the dark story. She questions if he's the real Ultimate Lifeform, and thinks his memories might not be real. Shadow acknowledges this, but is still determined to fulfill his promise to Maria, and rushes off to stop Sonic. Sonic and Shadow meet up, and have one last duel that Sonic wins. He calls Amy and Tails, and they see him destroy the Eclipse Cannon, and give off a cool pose to end the hero story. The Dark campaign concludes with Eggman powering up the Eclipse Cannon, and a mysterious warning flashes on the screen. After the credits, we get a dramatic teaser for the last story.
Sonic Adventure 2, last episode. Wishes are eternal.
In this mode, we learn the backstory of SA2. 50 years ago, Gerald Robotnik directed Project Shadow for Gun, which led to the creation of Shadow the Hedgehog, the ultimate lifeform. Gerald lived on the Ark with Shadow and his granddaughter Maria. At some point, the military became concerned about the safety of the project, and they raided the Ark. Almost everyone on board was killed, most notably Maria. Gerald survived and was jailed, while Shadow was ejected to Earth. The death of his granddaughter drove Gerald insane. He tampered with Shadow's memories to make him believe Maria wanted to exact vengeance on humanity, when she actually told Shadow to save everyone. Meanwhile, Gerald rigged the Ark so instead of firing the Eclipse Cannon when it had 7 Chaos Emeralds, it would now collide with the planet and kill everyone. He reveals this in a video confession shortly before Gunn kills him. I don't understand how he was able to do all this from a jail cell, and it's never explained. Back in the present, Eggman has unknowingly triggered this doomsday scenario, so the heroes and villains team up to get to the Eclipse Cannon, where the Master Emerald should be able to neutralize the Chaos Emeralds and save the planet. This brings us to the final stage canon's core, where you play as every character except Shadow and try to save the world. One thing I want to point out about this level is Knuckles has a hidden upgrade called the Air Necklace that was previously only useful in the stage Aquatic Mine. But it's highly recommended you have it here because his segment is almost entirely underwater, and the air bubbles are placed far apart from each other. While everyone is racing to the Eclipse Cannon to save the planet, Amy finds Shadow looking down on Earth. She tells him he should save the world, and she reminds him of what his real promise was to Maria. He has a change of heart and runs to the cannon. Sonic and Knuckles find the Chaos Emeralds in a shrine that's based off the one from Tikal's flashbacks in SA1. It's guarded by the Bio-Lizard, the creature Rouge discovered when she looked into Project Shadow. The Bio-Lizard was the prototype for the Ultimate Lifeform before Shadow was created. How you go from giant lizard to fast hedgehog is beyond me, but I guess anything is possible at science. Shadow arrives to hold off the Bio-Lizard, while Sonic and Knuckles save the day. We get a well-designed boss fight where the two Ultimate Lifeforms face off against each other. Knuckles uses the Master Emerald to shut down the Chaos Emeralds, but the Bio-Lizard uses Chaos Control to escape. He's continuing the collision course with the planet by fusing himself with the Ark. Without saying anything, Sonic and Shadow know what they have to do. The main theme of the game Live and Learn plays as they harness the power of the Chaos Emeralds and transform into Super Sonic and Super Shadow. They team up to fight the final hazard in an epic battle where you swap between the two characters as everyone calls to cheer you on. Live and Learn isn't my favorite Crush 40 song, but it's perfectly used here where the fate of the planet rests on Sonic and Shadow defeating the Bio-Lizard. This is a great way to end the game. After beating the final boss, the Ark is still hurtling towards the Earth. Sonic and Shadow use Chaos Control to teleport it away and save the planet. Shadow runs out of energy and falls to Earth, happy he fulfilled his promise to Maria. It looks like he's dead, and everyone mourns him on the Ark. It's a bittersweet ending to a phenomenal game.
Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
I really enjoy this story in Adventure 2. It's ambitious, has witty dialogue, a bunch of hype moments, and is very entertaining. Shadow and Rouge were fun additions to the universe, and I'm happy they stuck around. The story has some issues like the plot holes and lazy writing, so I can't say it's a great narrative, though it is one I like. You can argue the backstory of a child being killed by the military is too dark for a Sonic game, but I don't know. It works better in execution than you'd expect. Maybe I should have used a different word besides execution there. Oops. I think my biggest issue with the story is Shadow having false memories, since it makes his change of heart at the end too easy. Maria's death by itself is enough motivation for him to seek revenge against humanity. I also always thought it was weird how Gerald Robotnik is the main villain, but he's been deceased long before the game begins, so the final boss is a monster he created. Thankfully, all the issues I have with this plot were fixed when the game was adapted into the third Sonic movie, and it was a pleasure watching that. I've always liked Shadow as a character, so getting to see his story on the big screen was a dream come true. To be honest, even though this narrative is far from perfect, it's still my favorite in the series. Watching it is incredibly fun, and it has the perfect blend of comedy and drama. Sonic Adventure 2 is very special to many fans like myself. I still have fond memories of playing Metal Harbor for hours as a kid, trying my best to get the A rank, or when I went to the Sonic Symphony show a few years ago and they played City Escape. The venue erupted. It might have been the loudest moment of any concert I've ever been to. I remember talking about it with my friend afterwards, and he said hearing that song live awakened something in him. And keep in mind, he hasn't played that many Sonic games aside from Adventure 2. That's the aura this game carries with it. I know the gameplay is inconsistent, but SA2 has the best story in any Sonic game, lovable characters, fantastic songs, brought new ideas to the series that have stuck around, and the speed stages are some of the most fun I've ever had with a video game. No matter where I am in my life, or what age I am, playing through Adventure 2 always fills me with joy. What more could I ask for?
That was cool!
I'm not sure how to describe Sonic Heroes. It's a very confusing experience. It somehow has some of the best concepts and gameplay in the series, but also some of the worst. Not to mention, this is the 3D Sonic game I've played the most in my life, and my opinion on it has changed a lot throughout the years. As I'm writing this opening, I haven't replayed the game yet, so I don't even know what my current thoughts about Heroes are going to be. What I mainly care about is I have some personal issues with this game. And I'm hoping that by making this video, I can finally resolve those and move on. I had more for this opening, but I think Amy is going to try to hurt me soon, so without further ado, let's dive into Sonic Heroes. After the Dreamcast was discontinued, Sega became a third-party developer. They wanted to create a new Sonic game that would be released on all of the 6th generation consoles. This new game was once again put in the hands of Sonic Team USA. They didn't want to make another title in the Adventure series because they felt it would only appeal to hardcore fans, whereas the new game would be better received by a casual audience. Development on the project was difficult because with the previous titles, they were able to work closely with Sega's hardware teams to create the features they wanted. But Sega wasn't making consoles anymore, so this was no longer possible. And the game needs to be multi-platform, with Sonic Team having no experience working with the PS2 and Xbox systems. These factors made development problematic. In fact, Takashi Iizuka reflected back on Heroes as the most stressful part of his decades-long career at Sega. He had to work around the clock because there were only 2 people, including himself, assigned to the level design, and that other person got sick towards the end of production. You can see the trouble development when you compare the different releases of the game. The PS2 and Xbox versions have issues not present in the GameCube release, especially the PS2 version that runs at 30 frames per second and has other graphical and audio issues. I grew up playing Heroes on the GameCube, so that's the version I chose for this video. The game was released in Japan at the end of 2003, and the rest of the world would get it soon after, in early 2004. Sega partnered with McDonald's to promote the game, and we got some toys and ads from this collaboration, including this one that aired in Pakistan. It looks terrible. Oh my god, what is this nightmare fuel?
Shadow basketball!
Right off the bat, you'll notice that Heroes plays differently from the Adventure formula. Instead of having multiple gameplay styles and stages where you play as a singular character, this game does the opposite of that. Now there's only one gameplay style, and you play as multiple characters who have to work together as a team. You can switch between them by pressing the X and Y buttons, and it's a pretty seamless transition. Each team is comprised of 3 different character types: Speed, Flight, and Power. The Speed characters play similarly to Sonic and Shadow from SA2. They still run fast, can homing attack enemies, and have access to the Lightspeed Dash. Moves like the Spin Dash and Somersault are gone, and in their place, we have some new abilities, such as the Tornado move, that lets the team fly up poles and disarms enemies. The rocket excel is similar to the spin dash in generating ground speed, although it's kinda weird and less useful in my opinion. And if you homing attack a wall, your character can perform the triangle jump, where they repeatedly bounce off of it, like a ninja. Flight characters can fly. Wow, bet I blew your mind by saying that. The interesting thing about the flying is it doesn't behave like Tails' levels from Adventure 1. Here the flight has a vertical cap, so at a certain point, it becomes more like hovering in the air to assist the player with platforming. The other abilities these characters have is the Thundershoot attack, where they use their teammates as projectiles to attack or stun enemies, and they can separate from the team if you encounter multiple switches that need to be pressed simultaneously. The power characters are the strongest, which is useful because the enemies and heroes have health bars for the first time in the series. You can fight the robots by either attacking them in the air or on the ground. Did Knuckles just curse in a kid's game? Okay, technically he is saying shift, but the T is very subtle. I'm sure it's just an accident, right? One of those weird localization things? Okay, my idea for this part was to show a clip from a panel Knuckles' voice actor Scott Dreyer did in 2024. However, I don't have permission to use that, so instead I'll just tell you. Basically, Sonic Team asked him to say shift, but make the T as soft as possible. Yeah, they knew the whole time. Isn't that crazy? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, you're going to frequently be using the power characters, since combat is often mandatory to progress further in the level. They can also break objects that are in the way and perform the triangle dive, a move where the characters slowly descend in the air that can lift them up if it's used near fans. Characters can collect power cores that level them up. Higher levels make your character stronger and give them access to new abilities. For example, at level 3, the speed characters can generate tornadoes by homing attacking. You collect power cores from item boxes, defeating enemies, and by crossing checkpoints with that specific character, which gives you a decent amount of control in who gets upgraded first. I like this mechanic because it makes playing stages easier since you can spend less time fighting enemies. The upgrades from the Adventure series aren't in this game, so this is the next best thing, although these aren't permanent. Another new mechanic is by collecting rings and attacking enemies, you can fill up a meter called the Team Blast. It's essentially a screen nuke attack with sick animations. This comes in handy when there's a lot of enemies to fight, or they take forever to kill, like in the second half of the game. The rankings return from SA2, and they're a bit different here. The trick system isn't in this game. Instead, you mainly earn your bonuses by passing through these rainbow rings, performing the lightspeed dash, and defeating multiple enemies in a row. This time the rankings also apply to the boss fights, where the sole criteria is how fast did you beat them. Rail grinding is back too, and it's been simplified with the removal of the leaning system. On the topic of simplification, Heroes harkens back to the Genesis games in terms of structure. There's only one gameplay style, and very little minigames or distractions, like the tornado levels in SA1. The closest thing to that in Heroes, I guess, are these bobsled sections, where you dodge obstacles at high speed. Moreover, the way stage progression works is similar to Sonic 2 and 3. You play two stages that have different gimmicks and level design, but they usually share similar backgrounds and assets. Then you fight a boss at the end, although here those happen after the two stages. Rinse repeat 7 times, and you've beaten a playthrough. Hidden in every level is a key you can obtain. If you take damage or die, you'll lose this item, and you'll have to find a new one. Although keep in mind, there are very few in each level. If you reach the goal ring when you're holding the key in Act 2 of a zone, you'll be taken to a special stage. These are based on the ones from Sonic 2, with them taking place in a half-pipe, except here you're directly chasing after the Chaos Emerald. If you want to catch up to it, you need to collect these spears that give your character a boost. When I was a kid, I hated these levels, but eventually I figured out that if you just hold down the boost button instead of mashing it, these might be the easiest special stages in the series. I can beat most of them incredibly quickly, and I never come close to losing. Seriously, they're a breeze. There's a lot that Sonic Heroes does well. The gameplay is intelligently designed around using all 3 characters. The combat is an excellent showcase of this because it's more nuanced than just use the power formation. For instance, there are some robots that the power characters can't reach, so you need to ground them with the flight character first before you can defeat them. But these 2 character types are slower on the ground, meaning you want to play as the speed character as you progress through the stage. You're probably wondering, what if you could fight more often with that formation so you don't have to slow down by swapping? Well, at level 3, these characters are able to one-shot the weaker enemies by themselves. This makes upgrading them first the optimal way to play the game. However, even with this example, the weak egg pawns are rocking swords to counter the homing attack, so the combat always requires all 3 characters working in tandem. Another display of the teamwork is triangle jumping with Sonic, and then immediately using Knuckles to destroy these trains at Bullet Station. The level design in this game is solid. There's always something to do because you're constantly shifting between the 3 characters on your team to deal with the obstacles in your way. And the stages are thankfully more open-ended than Adventure 2, so there's more to check out when you replay them. One thing I love in this game is when I reach a shortcut by using the flight character at just the right time. Man, that feels good. Side note, I think the flying characters were a great way to balance Tails in these games without him being broken like in SA1. The levels are really creative, even more so than in the Adventure series. Like the stage Bingo Highway, where the gimmick is you're rolling down long sections while simultaneously playing bingo. Or how about Frog Forest, where when the frog notices you, the environment starts raining, and this spawns mushrooms you can bounce off of. The set pieces are extremely memorable too, such as escaping the power plant before the lava kills you, and platforming challenges for each character type at the end of Mystic Mansion. My favorite level has always been Egg Fleet. It's such a cool concept where you have to fight your way through multiple Eggman warships in the sky. There's a lot of great platforming, multiple paths to take, and exciting set pieces. It's got everything. It's one of my favorite Sonic levels ever. I really like these stages, and it's mind-blowing that only 2 people designed them. This is the kind of creativity the series has been lacking lately, so I was very impressed when I went back to this game. I enjoyed that Heroes is simpler than the adventure titles. Going from stage to stage with one gameplay style makes for a more consistent experience. I'm no longer disappointed when I'm replaying the Dark Story and have to go through 4 stages until I get access to Shadow again. The graphics are top-notch. The character models look solid, and the colorful stages have nicer textures than SA2. Definitely better than another game that came out in 2003, but that's besides the point. The soundtrack is stellar. This time it's more electronic than rock and roll, and I think every song is a winner. My personal favorite level theme might be Ocean Palace. There's this wonderful part where it gets a little sad and kind of triumphant. I don't know how to describe it, but listen to the song and I think you'll get it. The vocal tracks are also a delight to listen to, such as Team Dark's theme, This Machine. I remember listening to this song on YouTube a lot as a kid. It always appealed to me. However, these days, I'm giving the best vocal track award to Follow Me, Team Rose's theme. The lyrics are super cheesy, but I don't care. I love it anyway. To be honest, I've never enjoyed the main theme Sonic Heroes that plays over the opening, and I think that's why that cutscene never impresses me. In my opinion, they should have scrapped it and used the Knuckles rap song as the intro instead, which are strangely absent in this game and the rest of the series. Do they keep getting lost in the mail or something? As you can see, there's a lot to appreciate in Heroes. When everything's going smoothly, you can have a blast playing it. So far with all my criticisms, but that ends now. Heroes is extremely unpolished. There are many mechanics that don't work correctly. Like sometimes when you try to rail switch, your character will go too far, and you'll just die. You rail grind a decent amount in this game too. There's literally an entire stage dedicated to it, called Rail Canyon, that heavily encourages you to rail switch to hit these dash pads and go as fast as possible. Except you can't do that because the mechanic is inconsistent. It's a shame because this level is a neat idea, yet I always have to walk on eggshells when I play it. Or grind on eggshells. Wait, that sounds bad too. The same applies to the very last set piece in the game, that's another rail switch section. Here an Eggman-shaped tower fires lasers at you, and you need to quickly dodge them. I adore this part, but it sucks that it relies on a mechanic I don't trust. The lightspeed dash is also worse than before. Sometimes your character will only hit one ring, and you'll plummet to your death. This didn't happen in the last 2 games, so what went wrong? This stuff has to be a consequence of the rush development. Moves that automatically lock onto targets, like the homing attack in Tornado, sometimes make the wrong choice, which is strange. And the loops are a little wonky. Occasionally I'll notice that my character is slowing down on them, and when I played Ocean Palace, I got hit by this giant wheel as soon as the loop started, even though I was holding forward and the loops are automated. This happened at the end of the stage too, while I was holding the key by the way. I just let myself die at that point, because I wasn't letting a broken feature rob me of the first special stage. For my money, the worst mechanic in this game is combat with the power characters, specifically Knuckles and Omega. When they use grounded attacks, they always move forward. No matter what you do, they cannot stand still when they attack. This becomes a problem later in the game when you face the Egg Hammer enemies. You're supposed to repeatedly fight them with your grounded attacks, but if the stage is small, you'll often fall off the map using these moves. So I'm forced to fight these enemies with massive health bars by using my aerial attacks instead. Though this creates a new issue, because when you use your teammates as projectiles here, and they get hit, they're temporarily stunned, meaning I need to wait forever for them to get up in order to resume combat. I understand it makes logical sense your teammates can get stunned by the enemies, however it does make for good gameplay because it slows down the pacing. And oh my god, in the final levels, there are times where you need to fight multiple Egg Hammer enemies at once, and it is incredibly miserable. I'm not gonna lie, whenever I have to fight these enemies together, I use the Thundershoot to build up the meter, and then I kill them with the Team Blast. It takes forever, and it's degenerate, but it's pretty safe. Earlier I praised the gimmicks in Heroes. However, there is one that's executed poorly. The Pinball in Casino Park and Bingo Highway. Unlike past casino levels, you need to play these decently well to progress further in the level. This doesn't sound that bad on paper, and it usually isn't to be fair. But the camera is way too close, and the physics feel wrong. The result is sometimes you get stuck on these boards for minutes at a time, and it is not fun. You feel helpless, and you're just praying the game will have mercy on you. I don't know, maybe this level sucks because it's in a casino, and Japan has strict anti-gambling laws. There is other social commentary in this game after all.
Marriage? No way!
Based. The almost flawless control of the adventure games has changed in Heroes, mainly with the speed characters. They feel more slippery, especially when they're running at top speed. Sometimes I switch to the flight character because I'm afraid I'll accidentally run off the stage. This is really disappointing because it's a clear downgrade from what we had before, and the control is extremely important in a platformer, especially one where you're usually moving very quickly. You know what else is a downgrade? My life. No, I'm just kidding. Or am I? I'm talking about the camera. It does not like cooperating with you. If you get a bad angle, tough luck. You gotta deal with that, dummy. Go play shadow basketball and eat your McDonald's. Sonic Heroes came out in 2003 and 2004. At this point, we had games like Jak and Daxter the Precursor Legacy and Ratchet & Clank 2 that had very good cameras, so I don't think it's crazy to expect better from Sonic Team. All these issues bog down the overall experience. It is possible to navigate around most of the jank when you're used to it, but why should you have to put in extra work to avoid broken mechanics? And even if you're an expert at Heroes, something will eventually go wrong, and it's rarely your fault. So I don't enjoy playing this game that much, and since I die all the time due to bugs, I don't care about getting A ranks either. Why should I try to play the level perfectly if there's a decent chance it randomly kills me at some point? The extra objectives in these games are only fun and worth pursuing when the core gameplay itself is solid, and that is unfortunately not the case with Heroes. Oh, and the bonuses you get in this game no longer have text attached to them, which is a strange choice that honestly makes earning points not as fun. I also miss the trick system and the spin dash. I have no idea why they removed those. I never know when to discuss the boss battles in these videos, so we're gonna cover them now. There are 3 types in Heroes. First are fights against Dr. Eggman. I actually enjoy these. They all boil down to spamming an attack on him before he goes down, but I can't lie, it is very satisfying to homing attack the Egg Albatross a million times. Next are the character battles where you face off against another team for an incredibly contrived reason.
Amy, what are you doing here?
Sonic, this time there's no way out of marrying me.
These are absolutely hilarious. I have no clue what's going on, I just spam the tornado move and hope the other team dies before I do. Last are the enemy gauntlets where you fight waves of robots in a row. These are my least favorite because they take too long and they're really freaking boring. Dying is uniquely painful in this game. You lose all your level ups, making the combat more annoying and dragging out the stages. Speaking of, the levels in Heroes are substantially longer than the speed stages in SA2. It varies from level to level, so I took the average of all my Team Sonic stages from this playthrough, and it came out to 6 minutes and 51 seconds. Keep in mind this doesn't count deaths, and I have a ton of experience with this game, meaning the actual length for a newcomer is likely even longer. Regardless, I think this is a tad too long for a Sonic level, although it would make sense if there was only like one campaign in this game. However, the issue is there's a lot more than that. There are 4 teams in Heroes that each have their own playthrough, and there's only one gameplay style. So you might be wondering, what's different between the campaigns? Well, it's not the characters themselves. They all play mostly the same. There are some small differences in their abilities, such as Espio's tornado move turning him invisible, and Amy can briefly fly with her hammer, but these barely affect the core gameplay. The only substantial difference is each team has a unique team blast. Okay, so maybe the distinction lies in the stages, like in SA2, where the hero and Dark Stories essentially had the same characters, but a lot of the levels were unique. And when stages reused backgrounds or assets, at least the level design was different. Sadly, that is not the case with Heroes. Every team plays through the exact same 14 stages, and even fights identical bosses. Some of the level design is altered, but it's almost always just small changes, and that makes the game repetitive, because once again, you need to beat every campaign to unlock the last story. This is the major flaw with Sonic Heroes. You basically have to beat it 4 times in a row, and that is next level laziness. Sonic Team really copy and pasted their work 4 times, and expected no one to care. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. Did someone think SA2 is too short? That game was 6 hours long, which was perfectly reasonable. Now we have a 10-hour game that is extremely bloated. There's some slight variance between the 4 playthroughs that I want to cover. You can play the campaigns in any order you want, so I always begin with Team Sonic that consists of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. You can think of these levels as the normal mode. Their Team Blast is the least interesting. Its one unique property is after the move is used, the meter has a cooldown, and if you press the B button with Sonic during this period, he can kill any enemy. During this playthrough, I tried to grab as many Chaos Emeralds as possible to get them out of the way. Collecting all the emeralds is the other requirement to unlock the last story, BT dubs. Wait, why did I write that in the script? I'm never saying BT dubs again. In Heroes, the emeralds are linked to the level you find them in. So I failed to hold on to the key in Lost Jungle, and that means if I want to get the 5th emerald, I have to go back to that stage to get it. Playing as Team Sonic was a little annoying because I kept trying to get the keys, and that meant I had to not take damage or die. It's not the easiest thing to do in this game, but I still beat this playthrough with 6 of the 7 emeralds. Go me. Next up, I like doing Team Chaotix, whose members are Espio the Chameleon, Charmy B, and Vector the Crocodile. If you're wondering who on earth these guys are, they were in the game Knuckles Chaotix on the Sega 32X. Yeah, they're that obscure. Espio is a ninja who doesn't talk much, Charmy is an annoying kid, and Vector loves money. The Chaotix Team Blast gives them a random ring power-up for each enemy they kill, and these power-ups continue if you defeat enemies during the meter's cooldown period. What this means is you can rake in the extra lives with them, and sometimes even refill the meter before the cooldown is finished. They're the only team where the enemy gauntlets are actually fun, because you can spam the Team Blast the whole time. I even maxed out the ring counter at one point. I've never seen that happen in one of these games. Team Chaotix have the one campaign where Sonic Team tried to mix up the gameplay. I don't think they succeeded, but I'll applaud the effort. Their levels have different objectives to complete. Sometimes you're looking for items, collecting a certain amount of rings, or you need to reach the goal ring without getting detected. These feel a bit different, but it's still the same levels, and the tasks are generally simple to fulfill. One thing I appreciate is most of the item fighting missions have extra collectibles on the stage, so you don't have to be perfect. Notice how I said most of them. Some, like Mystic Mansion, only have 60 torches, and if you miss 2 of them like I did, you have to teleport back to the very beginning of the level and then loop around until you find them. This sucks, and it's why I don't love these stages. I spent 12 minutes on Mystic Mansion alone. That's ridiculous. At least with the Chaotix, I was able to get the one key I missed, so I already got all the Chaos Emeralds. Call me Barack Obama. It's time for Team Dark, where you play as Shadow, Rouge, and a new character, E102 Omega, a robot who wants revenge on Dr. Eggman for locking him up. In their Team Blast, they use Chaos Control to destroy the enemies, and this freezes everything in place, including the timer. Getting to use Chaos Control in the gameplay is a fun idea, and this is my favorite Team Blast as a result. Team Dark is the hard mode because they have the longest stages, and there's more enemies for them to fight. But this is a pretty minor change for the most part. Their playthrough isn't much longer than Team Sonic or Team Chaotix. However, the worst part of the game happened in this campaign. Their second enemy gauntlet, Robot Storm, throws so many enemies at you, including a lot of egg hammers. Consequently, the fight is difficult and takes forever. I died multiple times here, and it was the one instance where heroes ticked me off. Man, I spent 17 minutes total playing this. It was terrible. Robot Storm notwithstanding, I actually had a better time overall with this campaign compared to Team Sonic and Team Chaotix. The few instances where they add new level design are very fun, and I was able to relax more when I played these levels because I no longer had to look for the keys. Team Dark's campaign still wasn't great, but I honestly thought I would have a more negative experience with it. I ended things off with Team Rose. We got Amy, Big the Cat, and a new character, Cream the Rabbit. She was created for this game, but she made her debut a little earlier with Sonic Advance 2 on the Game Boy Advance. Team Rose's Team Blast is stupid. Every character gets a level up, and the team is given invincibility and a shield. I personally think that's overkill. This story is the easy mode. The levels have fewer enemies, and they're less powerful. And the stages themselves are substantially shorter. Some of them you can clear in only 2 minutes. This campaign only took me 1 hour and 20 minutes to beat. In comparison, the next shortest campaign was Team Chaotix, where it took me 2 hours and 23 minutes. That's a full hour less. I like ending with Team Rose because I know it's going to be a chill time. The reason I do the Chaotix second is I know Team Sonic and Team Dark are basically the exact same, so I try to avoid playing them back to back. And those were the campaigns. Honestly, they blend together in my head because it's the same game recycled 4 times. I can't even say which playthrough is my favorite and least favorite because they're so homogeneous. See what I mean when I say this game is weird? The unbelievable thing is during development, they planned on adding even more teams and bringing back characters like Mighty and Ray. Thank God that didn't happen because those would have been required for sure. Emblems return, and every stage has a secondary mission you can complete to earn more of them. I already played this game way too much, so I barely touched these. Getting every emblem in A rank unlocks super hard mode if you want to play an even harder version of the levels. I do love how silly the title is, but once again I wasn't interested. The multiplayer is back, and it's a lot worse than before. The frame rate has been cut in half, and there aren't that many stages to play. It feels bare bones. At one point I started laughing because of how bad it was. The funny thing is, this mode was my first experience with the 3D Sonic game as a kid because a family friend owned Heroes and played the multiplayer with me. I was hoping that by playing this, it would ignite some lost nostalgia in me, but no. It's very tacked on and underwhelming. The narrative is less involved in Adventure 2, so this discussion will be shorter. Team Sonic's plot is literally just them fighting Dr. Eggman before he takes over the world in 3 days. The most interesting thing to talk about here is beginning with this game, Knuckles goes from the Guardian of the Master Emerald to a dude who's friends with Sonic. The Master Emerald rarely gets mentioned again, so my headcanon is Knuckles either hid it underground or doesn't care. I guess one of the characters having a full-time job makes it harder to put them in stories. In Team Rose's plot, Amy wants to find Sonic, Big wants to find Froggy, and Cream is a chow named Cheese who wants to find their sibling. After beating Dr. Eggman, everyone finds who they're looking for. Team Dark's story is the most interesting. Rouge is looking for a thing when she finds Shadow the Hedgehog inside a capsule after his death in Adventure 2. Omega and Shadow are both awakened, and Omega proceeds to attack. Rouge is able to interrupt their fight and discovers that Shadow either has amnesia or no memory at all. I have things to say about this story choice, but I'll hold off on them for now. Anyway, she realizes they all want Dr. Eggman, so they should work together. For some reason, Rouge never bothers explaining Shadow's backstory to him, even though she knows it. Again, I don't like this choice, but it doesn't matter that much right now. Eggman refuses to tell Shadow what he was doing in the base whenever they interact, and eventually we discover the truth. Eggman has a whole army of Shadow robots, so the Shadow we've been playing as is probably one of them. Now he's the fake Hedgehog, and we're going to talk a lot more about that in the next game. In Team Chaotix's story, they're detectives who get an offer from a mysterious client. Spoiler alert, it's not Bark the Polar Bear. It's the real Dr. Eggman, and the one we've been fighting is a fake. It turns out that the true mastermind in Heroes is Metal Sonic. I should mention the twist is basically told to you in the cutscene after you beat the Egg Albatross, because the devs think we're stupid. In the scene, we learned the Eggman we fought was a robot, and Metal Sonic used the fight to copy your team's data. We also get some cool foreshadowing of this reveal in Haunted Castle with this Eggman statue that shows Metal Sonic after you flip the stage upside down. All roads lead to the last story, where Metal Sonic uses the data to transform himself into a dragon-type monster called Metal Overlord in a super over-the-top transformation scene. You know the drill by now, we need to use the Chaos Emeralds to go super and beat him up. But that takes time, so in the first phase, the teams besides Team Sonic fight Metal Overlord. It's an okay fight where you spam attacks on him. Metal Sonic gets mad and takes to the skies. Sonic goes super, and for some reason, Tails and Knuckles just get these lame gold bubbles to show they're strong too. They could go super in the classic games, but I guess they can't anymore. I love this final boss. Metal Overlord is so powerful that he can only be damaged by the Team Blast. The whole fight is about building up your meter by countering his specific attacks with your corresponding character. It's really fun and satisfying. And oh my god, the Crush 40 song What I'm Made Of is criminally underrated. It's awesome here. All these finales so far have been excellent. Eventually Metal Sonic goes down, and the day is saved. That was the plot of Sonic Heroes. It's extremely simple. There's not much to discuss here, except that I like Metal Sonic being the main villain, and really enjoy him when he becomes the Metal Overlord. It's cool that the Monster of the Week is one we've met before, and haven't seen in a long time. I also like the name Metal Overlord, because it reminds me of Laharl from Disgaea Hour of Darkness.
Yeah, that's considerate of them. To show my appreciation, I'll only beat them half to death.
I don't think the characters are as fun to watch as in SA2, but there are definitely some enjoyable moments here.
It's your fault that Sonic and I aren't together. You're going to regret this for the rest of your life.
Is that so? Well then, it'll be a date to die for.
Hey, that's my line!
Heroes is the last game that uses the voice cast from the Adventure series, and I'm gonna be sad to see them go. Although the characters do talk a lot during gameplay, and it can get annoying at times.
Look at all those Eggman robots.
Okay, you're probably wondering what my history with this game is. It's a bit complicated. I barely remember when I played the multiplayer as a kid, so my first opinions formed when I got it when I was 10. I was just coming off Sonic Adventure 2, and I did not like Heroes at all. I died a lot due to nonsense, and playing the same stages 4 times in a row got stale. I beat it, and then didn't touch it again for years. Fast forward to 2017, and I'm replaying SA1 and 2 when I get this idea in my head that Heroes might be better than those games because it's a more consistent experience to play through. I decided to test this theory by replaying the game, and I really enjoyed it. I loved how it sort of feels like a 2D Sonic game in 3D, and it was the closest thing I had played at the time to the speed stages in SA2. And there's no treasure hunting or shooting, so it's 2 straight hours of fun 3D platforming. At least it was for me, since I just replayed Team Sonic's campaign all the time. I actually got really skilled at dodging all the jank. I thought Heroes was a blast, and at this point, I started liking it more than even the adventure titles. It became one of those games I was constantly playing at the end of high school, along with Sonic Mania and the Mega Man X series. I got so obsessed with this game, I would try to A-rank every Team Sonic stage in one playthrough, which is ludicrous to me now. On the rare occasion, I would try Team Dark too. I loved Sonic Heroes. Eventually I went off to college and played it less and less. Then in 2023, I tried the game out again for the first time in like 4 years. This playthrough was shocking because I really disliked the game now. It was so buggy and dull. I beat all the campaigns plus the last story, and by the end, Heroes wasn't even in my top 10 Sonic games anymore. Playing the game for this video was definitely better than that, and I did have some fun. However, the aforementioned problems canceled out most of my enjoyment, so now I just think the game is alright. Not good, not bad, it's something I can play and not feel much. But that also disappoints me, because I used to adore Heroes. I would play it religiously, and I feel like I can never have that experience again, the same way I do with superior games like X4 and Sonic Mania. Maybe that's okay though. From making this video, I've come to remember that as a part of life. Some things, such as pieces of media you associate with fond memories, you grow out of. And ultimately, I outgrew this game. I appreciate it for all the fun times, but in the end, it's just a weird mess. It has a lot of great ideas with the team synergy and the level design, yet it has so many glaring issues with its flawed mechanics and repetitive gameplay. Heroes is the inevitable result of its troubled development. I'm sure if the game released on just one console, or they had more time, it would have been much more polished. It's so interesting to me because everyone knows it has the potential to be vastly better. I don't know why it hasn't been ported to Steam yet. I'm aware there's a super old PC port, but that can't do what I'm talking about. Sega, I would love if Heroes got a PC version that played like the GameCube release. It doesn't even have to be better because I know the fans would jump at the chance to tinker with this game and make lots of fixes. Like improving the controls, or the lightspeed dash, or only requiring you to beat 2 campaigns to unlock the last story. I'm brainstorming, but come on, we all know this would happen. This is the same community that put Sonic Unleashed on PC. People love this game, so I'm hoping we get a re-release at some point. In the meantime, thank you Sonic Heroes, but I've gotta let you go. You're just an average platformer at the end of the day, and I think I can accept that now.
That was tight!
Sonic the Hedgehog has always been a series that chases trends. The whole reason the first game was created was so Sega could have a mascot platformer that could compete against Mario. Similarly, in the late 90s, Sonic made his big jump into 3D with Sonic Adventure because that was the hip thing at the time. I'm not knocking the series for doing this. It makes sense, especially since these games are basically a business. You want to appeal to what consumers are currently interested in. In fact, many of my favorite games take direct inspiration from what's currently popular. With that being said, there are some trends that aren't worth going after. In the 2000s, games that were more mature were all the rage. Everyone was playing Halo, or GTA, or Metal Gear Solid. It was a new era, where more games were made for adult audiences than ever before. This even rubbed off on some platformer series. Take Jak and Daxter for example. The first game is a standard collectathon 3D platformer, but then the sequel gave Jak guns, got a teen rating due to swearing, and had a much darker story.
I'm gonna kill Praxis!
Jak 2 sold well and was praised by critics. I imagine someone at Sonic Team looked at it and said, hey, why don't we do that? You combine the core Sonic fans with an older audience, and boom, you got a smash hit on your hands. And we can make Shadow the main character, since everyone likes him, and he's already an anti-hero. That brings us to 2005's Shadow the Hedgehog, a game that is shocking. I mean, just look at it. Shadow goes around shooting at people with guns and says a lot of curse words. When you hear that description, doesn't it sound like a parody? I can't think of anything that's farther away from what the Sonic series is about than this.
I'm going to destroy this damn planet.
Oh no!
Even when you look past the stupid premise, most people consider Shadow of 5 a frustrating mess that's a chore to play and horrendous to complete. I've always known about its poor reception. This is one of the only 3D Sonic games I didn't play as a kid. I remember one day I was at a game store with my mom, and I actually saw Shadow of 5 for $20. I thought about getting it, but I usually try not to play games I think I'll dislike, so I left it on the shelf. It wasn't until I was 19 when I finally played the game, and I didn't care for it. However, now we're in the year 2025, meaning this is the game's 20th anniversary. Yeah, Shadow the Hedgehog is officially retro now. Heck, it's old enough to vote. As time has passed, people who grew up with this game when they were kids have gone older and started defending it online. So I was curious to replay Shadow of 5 and see if maybe there was something I missed 6 years ago. But after beating the game, I'm sorry to say that it's still terrible. If anything, I think it's even worse now. I hope you're ready for Shadow the Hedgehog.
Looks like the party's getting started. Time to rock and roll.
The intro cutscene does a pretty good job at setting the tone. We witness an alien invasion in a city and see Shadow fighting the extraterrestrials and the gun soldiers. Meanwhile, the Crush 40 song I'm All of Me plays, and it gives the whole cutscene a very serious tone. The animation in the scene is legitimately great, and it is cool watching Shadow on a motorcycle and using Chaos Control. But as soon as I saw Shadow firing a gun, I just burst out into laughter. This premise is very dumb, and I cannot believe they made a whole game out of it. What have I gotten myself into? Okay, I'm ready to start the game now. Huh. I guess this is the review that kills me. Good. During the development of Adventure 2, Sonic Team planned on having branching paths the player would choose that would change the story and gameplay. This would be dropped from that game, but it was brought back for Shadow. The way it works is in every level you have different missions you can complete. Dark missions where you align with the main antagonist Black Doom, hero missions where you side with characters like Sonic and Tails, and neutral missions where Shadow ignores everyone and goes his own way. Most of these levels end with you getting one of the Chaos Emeralds, so Shadow's all of them when he completes a playthrough. Which mission you choose affects your trajectory in the story by sending you to different levels and boss fights. For example, if you beat the hero mission of Circus Park, you get sent downwards on the path, and you'll wind up in Death Ruins. But if you complete the neutral mission of the stage, that'll take you forward to Mad Matrix. Eventually you'll reach 5 final levels that each have 2 missions to complete and a final boss. This makes for a total of 10 different endings, so you get to decide who Shadow becomes. You can make him a hero who defeats Black Doom, a monster who turns against humanity, or something else entirely. To truly complete the game, you need to obtain all 10 endings, so that's what I set out to do. And I want you to experience it with me. That's why this video is going to be a bit different. I'm going to describe my first 5 playthroughs of Shadow the Hedgehog with you, and this discussion will include all the usual gameplay and story analysis you've come to expect. I hope by the end of this, you can share the pain I felt playing this game. The first playthrough is what I call the neutral hero run. Shadow the Hedgehog always begins with this cutscene, where we're told it's the 50-year return of the Black Comet. Shadow meanwhile has no memory of anything from his past, except Maria's death. Suddenly a group of aliens called the Black Arms invade Earth, and their leader Black Doom tells Shadow to bring him the 7 Chaos Emeralds. Shadow doesn't know if he should trust Black Doom or not, but decides to find all the emeralds to discover who he really is. This cutscene makes Team Dark's story from the last game so much worse. Why didn't Rouge tell Shadow his backstory? She knows almost everything about him. It's such lazy writing that was probably done because they already had this game in mind. In this route, I'm going to be completing the neutral missions, where the objective is to reach the goal ring. We begin with the level Westopolis. One of the first things you'll notice as you start playing is Shadow controls like garbage. It's even worse than in Heroes. He's really slippery at top speed. I'm constantly jumping to have better control of myself. Typically you'd expect a sequel to fix problems, not make them worse. Westopolis introduces us to the new combat. Littered throughout the levels are guns Shadow can pick up and use to defeat enemies. You're highly encouraged to fight this way because the enemies still have health bars and your homing attacks aren't very strong. There is a melee option on the ground too, but it's even less effective. Okay, so I think Shadow using guns is a dumb idea because it's cringy and he was naturally strong on his own before. Oh, and one more small thing. Maria was literally shot in front of him. You'd expect him to hate guns. In spite of all that, I have to admit this is the best mechanic in the game. Most guns quickly take care of the enemies, you can get a lot of ammo, and there's decent variety in the weapons. Not all of them are even guns, like you can use swords for example. And you don't have to aim your weapons. Most of them automatically lock onto the enemy, which was a good idea. At times the combat in Shadow can actually be pretty fun. It's stupid, and yet it works well. I'm not a big fan of Westopolis itself though, because the level is really flat and packed to the brim with enemies and explosions like a Michael Bay movie. Our reward for reaching the goal ring is a cutscene where we meet a new character, the Gun Commander. He orders the army to kill Shadow, and we learn that he has a grudge against Edgy the Hedgie. We cut back to Shadow ignoring Black Doom, who teleports him to the next stage Glyphic Canyon as punishment. This level is just as dull as Westopolis. They do attempt to have fun set pieces with you getting sucked up into these tornadoes, but all I could think about was how much more exciting this was when it happened in SA1. Here was when I discovered one of the most annoying mechanics in Shadow of 5. I selected the neutral mission, but repeatedly throughout the level, Knuckles and Black Doom kept returning to nag me that I should help them out. The only way to get rid of them is to repeatedly pause the game to reselect the neutral mission. The alternative is to constantly listen to them complain.
Where are you going?
How many of these monsters are there?
Both are annoying choices, and I can't believe no one realized this was a problem during playtesting. It completely breaks the flow when I'm pausing or getting ticked off. Next is this hilarious cutscene reintroducing the President character from SA2. It turns out he has a picture of Sonic and Shadow together on his desk in the White House. Why does he have this? It is so funny to me. Shadow returns to Prison Island from Adventure 2, which somehow survived getting blown up. The most notable thing about this stage is it has the first vehicle I used. Vehicles are a gimmick in this game that help you traverse the level, but most of them are underwhelming. You're usually just faster on foot, so most of them are pointless. Other than that, the hero companion in this level is Charmy, and wow, he is incredibly annoying.
Look! It's a war zone! Yahoo!
Shadow of 5 is the first game to have a new voice cast. The new actors all come from the show Sonic X, and most of them are pretty bad, except for Mike Pollock as Eggman and Jason Griffith as Sonic and Shadow. I think the other actors get better over time, but we'll see. Back to the stage, Charmy made this level not fun at all. Thankfully I remembered I can get to the goal ring a bit faster. You see, Shadow has 2 meters you can fill up by defeating enemies. If you beat enough foes associated with the Dark Mission, you can use Chaos Blast, that's a screen nuke attack. And if you defeat evil enemies like the Black Arms, you unlock Chaos Control, where you can temporarily zoom through the level, which is very helpful for reaching the goal ring faster. I don't think Chaos Blast is that great, but the benefits about having a full meter are you're invincible, have unlimited ammo, and can prolong the transformation by defeating enemies in this state. Overall, it's a good system. After beating the stage, Dr. Eggman is introduced for the first time in a cool looking FMV. Then we see Shadow is suddenly allied with Black Doom. Wait, what? I've been ignoring this guy for half of the playthrough. Last time I talked to him, he was upset with me. This makes no sense. You see, that's the thing about this game. The cutscenes before every level are always the exact same, even when the context doesn't fit. This makes for a very incoherent narrative for most pathways through the game. We're at Sky Troops now, and man, the writing is awful here.
This blue sky, staring at it from afar. Have I seen it before?
What?
You're telling me Shadow doesn't remember a blue sky? I don't. That has to be a mistranslation, right? That's absurd. He was literally just in Sonic Heroes. To make matters worse, the level is super similar to Glyphic Canyon that I just played 8 minutes ago. I guess you can consider it an Act 2 of that stage, but it feels more like a copy-paste to me. And man, the level design in this game is very boring when you're only trying to reach the goal ring. There's not much platforming, and the stages are really bland because they're also designed around the other objectives. Ugh, I don't like any of these levels so far. Okay, let's speed things up. Shadow discovers a bunch of low polygon shadow models that are supposed to be robots created by Eggman. He begins wondering if he's a robot, and Eggman confirms this. Shadow does not take the news well and vows to destroy Eggman. The last stage of the run is Lava Shelter, and I kinda like it. The gameplay is fast-paced, and for the first time, the rail switching mechanic works perfectly. I should point out that the triangle jump from Heroes returns in this game, and it also works well. And thank God, someone fixed the lightspeed dash. It works correctly again, and they even assigned it to one of the empty face buttons. All of this is very good. The final boss is against Eggman, and he designed this robot with slot machines Shadow can activate for some reason. He goes down, and Shadow is all the Chaos Hormones at last. He accepts that he's a robot, and decides to rule over Eggman's empire before karate chopping the Doctor to death.
Goodbye, Doctor.
And that's it. That was the Neutral Hero playthrough. What did I just play? Everything that was set up in the beginning, like Black Doom and the President, were completely dropped. The story only came together in the last 2 missions, and you get this unsatisfying ending where Shadow is an anti-hero robot now. It's nonsense. Oh my god, I'm only 10% done. I still have to do this 9 more times. Surely things get better from here though, right? This time in Westopolis, I helped Sonic with the hero mission, where you have to defeat all the black arms in the stage. It's similar to the Chaotix levels from Heroes, except there they usually had extra collectibles, so you didn't have to be perfect. In Shadow, most stages don't give you that leeway, meaning it's very common to miss an enemy and have to circle back to a checkpoint to find what you missed. That's what I had to do in Westopolis, and it was not fun. This boring stage took me 7 minutes to beat. And what sucks is defeating X amount of enemies is like 90% of the Hero and Dark missions. They're even worse than the dull neutral playthrough I just finished.
Disgusting black creatures, get out of my sight.
Oh man. Shadow, you should not say that. I thought you were supposed to be a pure hero in this run. We now go down to the level Lethal Highway. I played the hero mission where you need to defeat this tank before it reaches the end of the stage. And I like this level. Continuously firing at the tank was pretty fun, especially at the end where I filled up the hero meter so I had infinite ammo to take it down. I wish more missions in the game were like this. There's a boss fight against this monster called the Black Bull, and after that, it's time for the most infamous scene in Shadow the Hedgehog.
Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald?
Jeez, the cursing in this game is extremely juvenile and forced. I haven't mentioned this yet, but Shadow also curses when he takes damage and dies, and it constantly takes me out because I don't buy this dialogue from these characters.
Damn, not here.
I'm sorry if my criticism annoys you. The core concept of this game just doesn't work for me. The goal of Circus Park is to collect 400 rings, and it's fine. I appreciate how it has some memorable set pieces, such as riding on the zip line. Those are kinda lacking in the rest of the levels. Next up is Death Ruins, and once again, you gotta defeat a bunch of black arms. It's boring. Strangely, we fight the Black Bull afterwards. Didn't I just do that? I've barely mentioned the story in this playthrough because it's mostly been the same as the start of the Neutral Hero campaign. That changes in the last 2 stages. Sonic recruits Shadow to go to the Ark in the spaceship that really bugs me. I guess Tails built it because the front of the ship has the tornado mech from SA2. But why did they place it on the spaceship? It looks terrible and doesn't fit the color scheme at all. Whose idea was this?
A Chaos Emerald? You've got to be kidding me, guys. This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
What on earth? I've been playing the hero mission for every stage so far. Why is Shadow such a jerk? That doesn't reflect my choices at all. And this dialogue is abysmal. You like taking candies from baby Shadow, really? You might as well put a mustache on him to tell the audience he's evil. By the way, this is the same path as where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald. Oh my god, this game is so cringeworthy. Shadow gets a flashback of Maria, and this takes him to a level onboard the Ark called Lost Impact. This is my least favorite stage so far. The goal of the hero mission is you need to defeat all 35 artificial chaos lifeforms. The issue is the stage is massive, and you get no map to help navigate it. And everything looks the exact same, so it's incredibly easy to get lost here. And being lost in a Sonic game, especially a bad Sonic game, really sucks. I would have much rather played Mad Space than this. The only things I liked here are the gun soldiers who shoot at the walls, even after you beat the artificial chaos enemies. That was pretty funny. And I enjoyed the music, although I'm not big on the rest of the soundtrack. It's trying very hard to be edgy, and it doesn't work for me, particularly the vocal tracks. I don't care for any of these. I was surprised by this because I really like dark pop and emo music. Even the main theme, I Am All of Me, has never been a song I liked much. I remember when they played it over Shadow of 5 at the Sonic Symphony show. I actually cringed because I think this game is trying way too hard. Back to Lost Impact, it took me a whopping 22 minutes to find all the artificial chaos enemies. When I was ransacking the Ark looking for them, I was reminded of a quote by the English war poet Siegfried Sassoon. He wrote this after the bloody Battle of Passchendaele in World War I. I died in hell. They called it Lost Impact. Maybe it was something else. I don't know, I can't read. The point is I hated this level. The true hero route ends with another stinker, Final Haunt. It's on board the Black Comet. This stage is incredibly long, even when you're just going to the goal ring, which is thankfully the objective of the hero mission. And it has these boring flying sections where you ride one of Black Doom's enemies. But I finally made it to the end, and oh, the stage is over. Huh, I accidentally did the Dark mission because I thought you needed to destroy these shields to progress in the level. Well, okay then. I guess this is actually the confused hero playthrough. The ending sees Shadow backstab Sonic at the last minute because he dislikes him, I guess. Sonic and this gun mech are the final boss, and after you beat it, Shadow declares himself the most powerful hedgehog.
This is who I am!
This comes out of nowhere, and it has nothing to do with Shadow remembering Maria, the conflict with the military, or Black Doom's invasion. Despite being a different campaign, the story is still completely incoherent. Hey, at least it's over.
You scum! You're going down!
I played Westopolis for the third time and followed the hero path again until I reached Circus Park, where I completed the neutral mission. We get a cutscene where Shadow hacks into a computer by karate chopping it. I am not kidding. This takes us to Mad Matrix, a stage set in cyberspace that is shockingly bad. The level design has a boring gimmick of hitting switches until they're all the same color, and it takes too long. Then you're supposed to deactivate these terminals for the hero mission, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. I was trying to reach the goal ring. The problem is it wasn't clear which direction to go, because the stage is clearly designed around the other missions. So once again, I got lost in a level, and it took an eternity to beat it. And I hate the visuals here. Everything is so obnoxiously bright that I thought something was wrong with the game. But no, it's supposed to look like this, and this issue isn't limited to Mad Matrix. Like the Chaos Emeralds look horrible. Conversely, you have stages and textures that are way too dark. Shadow the Hedgehog is very ugly looking. Obviously the game is a darker tone, so it shouldn't look like the previous titles. But it should look better than this. Shadow winds up in the level Space Gadget, which looks very similar to Final Rush from Adventure 2. However, the level design has nothing going on, and it just made me wish I was playing that game. This isn't the only stage that reuses Final Rush assets, by the way. The following level does too. Okay, this cutscene is important. After 3 hours, the gun commander reveals why he despises Shadow. He was on board the Ark as a child, and was friends with Maria. One day he saw Professor Gerald create Shadow of Black Doom using the alien's DNA. That's why Gunn was concerned about Project Shadow, and explains their raid on the Ark.
Thanks to you, everyone I knew and loved was killed when the Ark was destroyed. Worst of all, my family.
No. No. This character is literally the commander of Gunn, the organization that actually killed his family. And yet he blames Shadow for the deaths of everyone on board, and not the army that murdered them? What the hell? This has to be the worst character across the entire series. His backstory should give him the exact opposite motivation. How does Dr. Eggman die in 4 endings, yet this guy always survives? He even escapes death when DC gets Independence Day. Christ, a 7-year-old cried a better character in this. I'm so sick of this game. Jeez, man, I'm not even done with the 3rd playthrough yet. The last stage is Cosmic Fall, and it sucks. You have to wait for these platforms to descend in order to progress, and it feels like an eternity. At least the fight against Black Doom at the end is enjoyable, especially when you have infinite ammo and can delete his health bar. The ending has Shadow blame himself for the gun raid, and he wishes he was never born. Like that terrible Fairly Odd Parents episode. It's super depressing with this sad music, but the whole scene is unintentionally hilarious because the comic relief character Vector is here for some reason.
Hey, don't go there! Yet, things may not be what they seem.
I don't think you could pick a worse character to be with Shadow in his darkest moment. It is ridiculous. It'd be like if Big the Cat was chilling in the background when Maria got shot. The scene is incredibly stupid too. Shadow isn't responsible for his own creation, meaning the raid on the Ark isn't his fault. I understand feeling sad about it, but the blame lies with Professor Gerald and the homicidal gun soldiers. This is just poor writing. What an awful playthrough. As I watched the credits roll, I came to realize something about this game. It's much more polished than Sonic Heroes. The mechanics all work as they're intended to. However, the experience is so much worse because at least Heroes was generally fun. Shadow is either boring, cringy, or frustrating. The only times I've actually enjoyed myself were when I was using the guns. Even the speed feels artificial 90% of the time, and you're constantly interrupted by enemies or the bad control. This doesn't work as a Sonic game.
Damn it. What does it all mean?
I played with Stopless for the 4th time, and this bland stage gets worse with each playthrough. I'm so tired of it. I beat all the gun soldiers, and then I played Digital Circuit, which is basically Mad Matrix again. It took me an absurd amount of time to complete, and had the exact same flaws. We're now in Cryptic Castle, and I need to light these torches for the Dark Mission. But I got lost again, making this another stage that took forever. And it looks horrible. The Dark Mission was about helping Dr. Eggman, so I was surprised when I beat the level, and Eggman fought me anyway. I just helped you, idiot. In this path, Shadow works for Black Doom. I've never liked this idea, because Shadow isn't a bad person. I know he tried to destroy the world in SA2, but he had fake memories there. Inherently, I've always viewed him as someone with trauma who wants to do the right thing. In Heroes, as soon as he woke up, he saved Rouge from Omega. And at the end, he helped defeat Metal Sonic. I don't buy that he would ever side with an alien, literally named Black Doom. Shadow makes it to Central City, home of the famous DC Comics character, The Flash. It's also home to the worst level in the game, and maybe the entire series up to this point. In the Dark Mission, you're supposed to detonate these giant bombs, while in the Hero Mission, Knuckles wants you to defuse these smaller bombs before the whole city blows up when the timer hits 0. Can't Black Doom just bide his time until the smaller bombs go off? Am I the only one who thinks these two missions make no sense together? Did anyone think about this during development? Central City is poorly designed. It's very wide open, and like Lost Impact, everything looks the same, so the level feels like a maze. There's a ton of different routes, and some of them are hidden behind these black walls that are very easy to miss. And you're on a timer, so I had to restart multiple times. When I finally figured out where all the giant bombs were, I got an easy A rank and beat the stage in 4 minutes. But in total, I spent 35 minutes here, and I was incredibly upset. I never ever want to play this level again. I guess it is fitting that Central City is so dreadful, since it's based on Westopolis. When I go to hell for running over those orphans, I think my punishment is going to be in Westopolis. Oh, my lawyer just told me that when I said I ran over orphans, I meant I did that in Minecraft. Yeah, totally. Wait, does anyone even care that I did that? Who's gonna notice? Their parents? I'm losing my mind. In the climax of this route, Black Doom uses the Eclipse Cannon to destroy the White House, but like a modern superhero film, everyone was evacuated in time. Now Shadow heads to the gun fortress to beat up the president, I guess. Finally, we have another level I genuinely enjoyed. You get loads of ammo to fight the gun enemies, and it's fun. Unfortunately, I can't say the same thing for the battle against Sonic and Diablon. It made me angry because it's so slow with the mech's invulnerability and how little ammo you get. The worst thing is the homing attack just did not cooperate with me. I hate when that happens. This game is already so long that I could not deal with this fight. It sucked. At least the story is kinda coherent. Shadow wants to destroy the planet because he's evil. Okay, at least that tracks to doing all the dark missions. It's better than this nonsense. I don't know how much more of this I can take. You know what? Let's just get all the story stuff out of the way. What I like about this run is Black Doom shows Shadow Maria on the Ark, so I can better understand why Shadow works for him, and why he vows revenge against humanity during the final battle. For this playthrough, I replayed all of the neutral pathway up until Prison Island, where I did the Dark Mission. This took me to the Doom, which is basically a copy of Lost Impact. But thankfully, I only had to reach the Gull Ring this time. The next stage, Air Fleet, is like on Fortress, so I kinda liked it. Especially the Dark Mission I did later, where you need to destroy the President's jet before it leaves the hangar. The final stage, Black Comet, is a duplicate of Final Haunt, therefore it sucked. After defeating Sonic again, Shadow pledges that he works for Black Doom, and it ends. Thank God. This game. That was awful. But here's the thing. That's only half of the endings. To fully beat the game, I need to obtain the other half. I knew this was coming, so I purposely routed the first 5 runs to ensure that I played every level in the game. Most of them sucked, but at least I saw everything, including all the cutscenes, except for the endings. And now, I have to do it all again. I hate my life. There's very little to say about the next 5 runs. I was not enjoying Shadow of 5, so to beat it as quickly and painlessly as possible, here's what I did. I played the neutral missions in the beginning levels, and then near the end, I started playing the hero and dark missions to get all the endings. I did this because the neutral missions are much faster, and I wanted to avoid the worst levels, such as Digital Circuit or Lost Impact. However, while stages like Prison Island and Glyphic Canyon are better, playing them over and over again was extremely repetitive. But I would rather do that than replay stages I don't like or have to play more hero and dark missions where I need to search for enemies to kill. At least I had podcasts and YouTube videos to help with the boredom, but it is still insane they designed the game this way. No matter what you do, you have to play Westopolis 10 times if you want all the endings in Shadow the Hedgehog. It's horrendous. Let's take a break from the main story to discuss the other modes. If you A-rank every single mission in this game, which actually isn't that hard by the way, because they're pretty generous, you can play Expert mode. The stages are harder, and you have to play all of them, but at least the objective most of the time is just reach the goal ring. I don't like Shadow of 5, and I obviously had no desire to play more of it, but I've heard some people love this mode, so maybe I'm missing something. But I seriously doubt it. Other than that, there is technically a multiplayer mode. There's just 3 maps, and the only thing you can do is run around and fight your friend. But hey, at least we got everyone's favorite Sonic characters. There's Shadow, Pink Android Shadow, and my personal favorite, Blue Android Shadow. Why did they even put this in the game? It's abysmal. Returning to the other 5 playthroughs, the last one I did was another pure neutral run that ended in the dark mission at Lava Shelter. It felt really nice beating the game, and seeing this confusing ending where Shadow vows that as an android, he'll be stronger than the original, and ends it off with a karate chop. At least we got to see different versions of Shadow in this game, and you can decide for yourself what's canon and... Wait. No. There's a last story? And it has an ending that's canon to the rest of the series? What was the point of all this then? Why did I have to beat the game 10 times and see these weird endings that didn't even happen? Who thought any of this was a good idea? How does Shadow of 5 keep getting worse?
Nothing makes sense.
In the last story, Black Doom reveals that he's evil and plans to take over the world. Shadow wants to stop him, but first we have to go through the last way. It plays exactly like Final Hunt and the Black Comet. Yes, they really recycled the same stage for a 3rd time. Oh man, please just let it end. Shadow tries to confront Space Dad, but he uses their shared blood to control Shadow. The Chaotix meanwhile discover that Professor Gerald created the Eclipse Cannon to one day destroy the Black Comet when Black Doom returned to Earth. This gives Shadow the strength to resist, and he goes super for the last fight. The battle is pretty frustrating, since Devil Doom's hurtbox is constantly moving, and the auto-aim isn't great. The most notable thing to mention is if you stay alive for 8 minutes, Eggman tells Shadow that he's the original, not a robot. I guess he was just trolling in the neutral hero campaign. I don't think this should have been an Easter egg. It's too important to Shadow as a character in my opinion. Also, couldn't Shadow test this by giving himself a paper cut? Whatever, Black Doom dies, and Shadow uses Chaos Control so the Eclipse Cannon can obliterate the Black Comet. The President has some horrible dialogue where he makes Professor Gerald out to be a misunderstood hero, and we're supposed to ignore that he tried to destroy the planet before the Black Arms came. He recorded his message before Maria died, and he went insane. I don't think this is a character worth celebrating. Shadow says goodbye to his past and walks away. I don't really understand this arc because I have no clue what technically happened in the story, but at least Shadow the Hedgehog is finally over. When I play these games for my videos, I'm usually able to beat them pretty quickly. But I was so exhausted with this game that I was taking frequent breaks because I didn't want to play it. It took me a full week to get all the endings. For reference, when I covered another game I disliked, Mega Man X7, I could play the whole thing in a single sitting. Shadow the Hedgehog was miserable. Almost nothing about it works. The most glaring issue is the incredibly repetitive and boring gameplay. In a fast-paced platformer focused on the coolest character in the series, that should not be possible. Even aspects other Sonic games always excel at, like the soundtrack and visuals, are underwhelming or outright bad here. It's a shame Shadow turned out so poorly because there was a lot of potential. Thankfully, in the 20 years since its release, some of it's been realized. There's a mod out there called Shadow Reloaded that fixes some of the problems. I didn't play much of it, but it's cool that it exists. And last year, we got the game Shadow Generations, which I don't think anyone saw coming. It brought back Black Doom and levels from this era of the series. It's a great experience that feels true to the character without being cringy or boring. I'm really happy they made it. As for Shadow of 5, this game sucks. It's such a product of its time. At no other point besides the mid-2000s would this strange premise have been greenlit. I can appreciate it for doing something different and being a more polished experience than its predecessor. But playing it 20 years later was so rough. Shadow the Hedgehog is still awful.
Perfect.
Oh no!
You know, what can I say? I die hard.
Sonic 06 is an absolutely baffling experience. This isn't a typical Sonic game. It's the most infamous one. Ever since it came out almost 20 years ago, everyone has talked at length about how terrible it is. There are so many problems on display here. 06 is a total mess. Many people consider it one of the worst games ever made, and that's kinda crazy because its predecessor Shadow the Hedgehog wasn't warmly received either.
This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me, which is fine by me, which is fine by me.
We are officially at the low point of the series. Or are we? You see, in the many years since this game was released, a lot of people who grew up playing it actually enjoyed 06 and have started defending it online. In the Sonic fan community, there are now two camps. People who despise 06 and people who like it, or at least defend it. Now for this video, I'm not going to pretend like what I have to say is groundbreaking. 06 has been thoroughly analyzed on YouTube for many years at this point. But I think my perspective on this game is unique because I didn't play it as a kid. Instead, I grew up watching videos of people reviewing 06 and hating the experience, so I stayed away from it even though I love Sonic games. But then in 2016, I watched a really funny playthrough of 06 and I was inspired to finally check out the quote-unquote worst Sonic game ever. I played the entire thing on my PS3 and I hated it. However, when I returned to the game for this video, I surprisingly had a very different experience that genuinely blew my mind. So is this game terrible or underrated? Well, let's uncover the two together. This is Sonic 06. Development began in the fall of 2004, where the game was envisioned as a rebirth of the series. The simple title Sonic the Hedgehog was chosen to echo this, although I personally don't like it because that's what the first game is called. That's why everyone just calls it Sonic 06. The plan for this game was to bring back elements people praised from the adventure titles to create the ultimate Sonic experience. 06 was first shown in 2005 at E3 and the Tokyo Game Show. The trailer I'm showing looks very cool, and it even teased a playable Super Sonic at the end of it. In Tokyo, a playable demo was available that showed off planned features like a day and night cycle. But creating the game was difficult. Sonic's co-creator and longtime series producer Yuji Naka would resign from Sega, or he was fired, depending on what version of the story you believe. Regardless, he would not be involved in development anymore. Takashi Iizuka also had much less influence this time because he was leading the team for Shadow 5 and working on other games. As a result, Sonic team designer Shun Nakamura became the director of the project. Sega wanted the game to release on all the 7th generation consoles in time for Christmas 2006. When they received development kits for the Wii, they realized this wasn't feasible due to that console being substantially weaker than the Xbox 360 and PS3. But Sega still wanted a Sonic game on there. As a result, it was decided that the team would be split in half. The first team would make Sonic 06 for the 360 and PS3, while the second team would design Sonic and the Secret Rings on the Wii. So now they had to release the game in time for Christmas, with only half of their team working with 2 new consoles they didn't have experience with. The developers were in a mad rush to get 06 out in time. They received numerous bug reports from quality assurance testers, but they ignored them because they were on a deadline. The game released in November 2006, and as you can expect, it was a massive success. All the issues the testers noticed weren't there. Sonic 06 was really fun and polished. Everyone loved the story, and they praised the near non-existent load times. I guess that goes to show, when you have to rush like crazy, it all turns out for the better. Nah, I'm just kidding. The game was slammed by critics and fans alike for being a broken mess.
What? Oh no!
Remember when I gushed over Sonic Adventure 2's opening? How it perfectly draws on the player and does a fantastic job letting you know you're in for an awesome experience? Well, I want to do the same thing here, because 06's intro is similar since it too captures the player's attention and sets the tone for the rest of the game. We begin with the gorgeous FMV that looks like it came from Final Fantasy. It's the city of Soliana's Festival of the Sun, which is presided over by Princess Elise. During the ceremony, Dr. Eggman attempts to kidnap the princess because he wants something called the Flames of Disaster. Sonic arrives and fights Eggman's robots before saving Elise. I love watching Sonic in this scene. My favorite part is when he tips over one of Eggman's robots instead of attacking it. That's really fun. As you can see, the human characters like Eggman are much more realistic this time. I'm personally fine with these changes, although they become more of an issue later on. I know a lot of people hate Eggman's look here, but it didn't bother me when I was playing. Except in this scene, where we get to see his eyes. Ugh, I don't like it. Next up is one of the regular cutscenes, and these are not very impressive. They look so dated, probably because this was Sonic Team's first time working with HD consoles. Elise gets captured, and Sonic needs to rescue her. There's a loading screen that takes me to a hub world. I walk around it for a bit until I see Tails, and we get another loading screen. Tails offers to tag along for the adventure. Cool. Cue the next loading screen. I discover that to reach the first level, I need the Lightspeed Dash. In this game, the upgrades from the Adventure series are back, and they're sold at a shop in Soliana. To get the money, I have to complete a mission for this dude. He explains what I have to do, and I accept. Enter another loading screen. Now the guy explains what I have to do again. Another loading screen plays. I complete the mission and we get our third loading screen. The man congratulates us, and we get the money. The last loading screen plays, and we're back in the hub world. What was that? Why does a side quest require 4 different loading screens? The first and third ones are just a text box. And the loads themselves are not fast. On average, they take around 15 seconds. Why does it take that long to load something so simple? I remember hearing years ago that the game loads the full hub world every time you're in it, and I think that's why these screens take forever. But why does the game need to load a full area during a text box? This is crazy. The worst thing is, every single side quest is like this. You have to sit through multiple loading screens. It is extremely tedious. By the time I finally enter the first stage, I've been playing for 12 minutes, and the only actual gameplay I've done so far was the tutorial mission. We get a loading screen, and then it's finally time to play. Things are going fine. I'm gliding on some water, and I think I hit a shortcut, which is cool. Maybe this won't be so bad.
No!
This is terrible!
What just happened? I glitched through the ramp and ended up on the opposite side of it. I tried to walk backwards, but I couldn't. I had to walk into the water and die. 24 seconds in, and I've already encountered a glitch that killed me. I tried the level again, and this time I beat the evil loop. But I learned that Sonic was bit by a radioactive spider because I did not know he could defy the laws of physics. Yeah, the loops do not work very well in this game. When I said the intro does a great job setting up 06, I really meant it. The issue is this game is a buggy mess, and you can see that immediately. Due to the rush development, Sega essentially released the beta, meaning there's a lot of obvious flaws that we're stuck with. Another example of this is when I reached a group of enemies and the frame rate tanked. 06 tries to run at 60 FPS, but it frequently fails at that. Frame drops are extremely common, and it is very annoying. But the stage itself, aside from these issues, is playable. I like how it has some alternate routes, and Sonic feels decent to play as. The controls in this game are noticeably better than in Shadow the Hedgehog because the characters aren't slippery. If you haven't noticed, the level is a homage to Emerald Coast from Adventure 1. It even tries to recreate the iconic whale chase. Emphasis on tries because the Sonic game on the Xbox 360 slows down during the sequence. It's too much for the console, even though 7 years earlier, SA1 on the Dreamcast could handle it completely fine. Now we play as Tails, and right off the bat, you'll notice he is incredibly slow on the ground. Sadly, this isn't exclusive to him either. Sonic himself is much slower than we're used to, but at least he runs at an alright speed after a few seconds. Tails is not so lucky. It's very strange to have a Sonic game where the characters aren't fast. How does that even happen? That's why the levels are filled with dash pads, because the game knows you want to go fast, except the characters can't do it, so the stages need to artificially give you that speed. This is honestly just poor game design. Tails can still fly in the air like in SA1, except his airspeed is also worse than before. To fight enemies, he throws dummy ring bombs, which technically did come from Sonic Heroes when he was separated from the other characters, yet it still feels weird. And the attack is slow if you use it on the ground. This Tails section is not very fun. We arrive at the last part of Wave Ocean, and it's called a Mach Speed section. Here Sonic starts running insanely fast. So fast that you can't stop him. You need to dodge the sea of obstacles in your way until you reach the goal ring. I begin the segment, and I hit a ramp that glitches out and causes me to hit this rock. Then I tried to lightspeed dash, and I didn't realize this makes you go faster, so I got a really funny death screen. Oops. The Mach Speed section is pretty annoying. Thankfully, this is only the first level, so it's not too difficult. After beating the stage, we get another loading screen. Then we discover that Eggman got away with Elise. The level was basically pointless. I'm starting to think running after an aircraft on foot was not a smart plan, especially when the surrounding area is an ocean. Finally, we get another glorious loading screen to exit the stage. I've been playing for 20 minutes, and all that has happened is Elise got kidnapped by Eggman, we met up with Tails, I played a buggy level that accomplished nothing, and I sat through 11 long loading screens. Actually, I missed one after the FMV. My bad. I sat through 12 long loading screens. When we compare this to SA2, in a mere 7 minutes, we see Sonic escape from a helicopter, flee the military in an awesome level, fight a boss, meet Shadow for the first time, set up a mystery on why he framed Sonic and how he can teleport, and see Sonic get arrested. The opening of 06 is very lame and slow-paced in comparison, which is crazy because this is a Sonic game. It's astounding how quickly you can see there's something seriously wrong with this game. An interesting thing about 06 is it's very inspired by the Adventure series. We can see that in the game structure. Like SA1, there are hub worlds, and it's here where you enter the stages. By talking to the townspeople, you can complete side quests that consist of various tasks, such as racing someone, finding a dog, or fighting enemies. Some of these missions are required to progress the story, mainly the combat ones. Whenever you finish one of these, you get a ranking. Except now your ranking determines how much currency you get. This incentivizes you to get higher ranks in order to afford the more expensive upgrades. I actually really like this feature since it gives you an immediate reward for playing well. Instead of emblems, this time you get gold medals for beating stages and boss fights. But wait, there's more. Littered throughout the game are silver medals you can collect. There are so many of these. I think there's almost 400 total. 06 has a ton of replayability if you're a completionist. Or psychotic. I would not recommend going for medals or doing any of the side content. There's no reward for 100% besides an achievement. No playable Metal Sonic or Green Hill Zone. Don't even bother. As we can expect at this point, there are multiple playthroughs in this game that are called episodes. At default, the only one available is Sonic's. By playing through this, you can unlock Shadow and Silver's playthroughs. Silver is a new character who has a fantastic design. I've always loved how he has telekinesis powers and a green aura around him whenever he uses them. The other addition to the cast is Blaze the Cat. Okay, technically she isn't new. She made her debut in Sonic Rush on the DS a year before this game, but I never played Rush, so she's essentially a new character in my mind. Her gimmick is she has fire powers and can run as fast as characters like Sonic and Shadow. Even though there are only 3 campaigns, there are a lot more playable characters. Each episode features 2 side characters who occasionally help the main hedgehog progress through stages. You don't play as these guys that often, which I think is fair. In my opinion, if you're making a 3D Sonic game, Tails and Knuckles should be playable characters, but they shouldn't have as much gameplay as Sonic. I think the best thing about the side characters is they're not looking for pieces of the Master Emerald, fishing, or defeating 40 enemies. Everyone is just trying to reach the end as fast as possible. That is great. It's what I was asking for back in Adventure 2. Each campaign goes through the same levels, but the characters all play differently from each other, and in general, the stages have altered level design, like in Adventure 1. You also do them in a different order in each episode, making the game much less repetitive than Heroes, and especially Shadow of 5. Overall, I think the game structure is good, at least on paper. The adventure formula worked well. It makes perfect sense to try it again. Although, maybe they shouldn't have because they screwed it up. Man, I wish I could perform chaos control myself and stop the review here.
Smile.
Yo, shut up! It's time to do a deep dive into the gameplay. What I'm gonna do is discuss each episode individually and describe my thoughts as I played them. I'm skipping the plot for now because I would rather save that for its own section, which I am dreading. Okay, let's begin with the Sonic episode. I already covered Wave Ocean, so the next thing we need to do is save this girl. There's a small bridge in Soliana, and I noticed it's really easy to jump into it and cause the camera to completely freak out. This is one of the first objects you encounter in the game, and it is completely busted. Sonic saves the princess, and we meet Silver for the first time.
I've been looking for you. You're the ableist trigger.
What is that sound effect? Why does he sound like a cartoon UFO? We have a boss fight against Silver, and it is amazing.
It's no use! 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 No!
We did it, folks. We finally have a voice line that rivals Oh No. Silver's a demon at first, because the only save time to hit him is when he's already levitating objects. The issue is, you can never see him because of the camera, so you need to rely on his stupid voice lines to know when he's vulnerable. It's not that difficult when you figure it out though. This fight is one of the highlights of the game for me, because if you position yourself correctly, Silver can launch you through the invisible wall, and you can leave the boss fight and explore the hub world. For some reason, the entire area is loaded during the fight, even though you were never supposed to access it. Even the bridges are loaded, except they're invisible. I meet up with Silver again, and he proceeds to throw me out of the entire game world. This goes on for a full minute. It is incredible. By the way, most of the boss fights in this game have 4 loading screens each. After the Silver fight, I ran around the Soliana hub road, and honestly, it's kinda neat. I think it's cool that Sonic gets to run around Italy, even though it runs like garbage. And the hub road isn't too large, which I appreciate. I genuinely prefer it to any of the adventure fields in SA1. I never thought I'd say that, but yeah, I like this specific hub world with Sonic. Sadly, the next one isn't so great, since it's mostly flat terrain that all looks the same. Oh yeah, and the game briefly freezes all the time here. Before the next level, we have a combat mission, and here's where I discovered that you can no longer damage enemies by jumping into them. Which makes no sense, because this was a feature all the way back in Sonic 1. Sonic and Tails reunite with Knuckles, and the cutscene is blatantly unfinished. What is wrong with Tails' face? Is this poor lighting or something? This happens in other cutscenes too. How embarrassing. Whatever, we enter White Acropolis that starts with the classic snowboarding section. Except it feels like garbage, and it was hard to perform tricks here. Even when they work, they're nowhere near as cool as they used to be. Aside from that, the stage is fine. Thankfully, the tail section is okay, since you can fly over everything. I tried using the spin dash in this level, and discovered that you can't jump out of it in 06, meaning it's not that helpful. Man, remember the SA1 spin dash? I miss those days. The highlight of the stage is at the end, where there are multiple routes to reach the goal ring. I'll give the game credit, that's some good level design. Eggman teleports the group to the future, taking us to Crisis City. The opening boarding section is pretty cool, with the setting of an apocalyptic city where monsters keep appearing to attack you. The problem is there's so much going on here that the frame rate chugs. Crisis City is the first stage that has extensive rail grinding, and I learned that rail switching, once again, does not work correctly. How is Shadow the Hedgehog the only game that did this right? As for the rest of the level, I kinda enjoyed it. It's still buggy with a slow Sonic, but the level design itself is solid. You have alternate routes that require skill to reach, some good platforming, and cool set pieces. At this point, I started to realize something crazy. I sorta like this game. I know I complained about Wave Ocean, however I didn't hate that stage, and the following levels all had more moments I enjoyed than disliked. And the bugs aren't bothering me. I actually think they're entertaining. 06 is a game that's really fun to watch and talk about because it's crazy. Like, I've shown friends this game just to see their reactions. Objectively, it's bad, but so far, I was surprisingly having a good time. Even the loading screens haven't been that irritating. The level concludes with another Mach speed section that I remember being very difficult, but I managed it fine. Although it does suck how when you press the jump button, Sonic can't move himself at all in the air. And this area runs poorly with all the obstacles on screen. The frame rate is so horrible that the result screen looks like it's in slow motion. Oh my lord. Flame Core isn't as enjoyable as Crisis City, but it's still a decent stage. And the music in the first half is awesome. Strangely enough, this is the only level where I found the invincibility power-up. Am I missing something? Because it feels like this is barely in the game. I'm surprised they didn't remove it, like they did with the shield power-up. My least favorite section in Flame Core is near the end. You have to play as Knuckles to activate these orbs all at once in order to leave the room. Knuckles sucks. He is super slow, and his glide is pathetic. He descends much quicker than before, and it makes activating all the orbs together annoying. The only way you can fight enemies is with a dive and an awful melee attack. The worst part about him is sadly an issue Rouge shares. They both frequently get stuck on walls. This is very annoying to play around, and it's another example of how unfinished 06 is. It's a basic mistake that effectively ruins two characters. What made this section worse is I personally had a hard time seeing what was happening because the room is too dark. In general, I think the lighting in this game is not good, and this is the most obvious example of that.
I found a Chaos Emerald.
Don't touch it!
Why does Shadow sound so angry there? Oh man, this game is absolutely hilarious. We finally returned to Soliana. Wait, no. We returned to Soriana, according to the newspaper. It's here where we can purchase the Bounce Bracelet, an extremely useful upgrade for beating enemies with giant health bars. I wish we got it sooner, because mashing the homing attack has sucked, but it's better late than never. Welcome to Radical Train, one of my favorite stages. It's well designed, has memorable gimmicks, and is relatively polished for this game. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is they brought back the bonus text in 06, and that small detail makes the gameplay more satisfying for me. Wow, am I really that easy to please? We get a boss fight against a robot called the Egg Genesis, a very obvious reference to the iconic console, the Virtual Boy. This battle surprised me because it might be the most complete segment in the whole game. The frame rate feels more stable, it's not that buggy, it just works correctly. It's a decent fight. I also like the first boss where you fight the Egg Cerberus. In Tropical Jungle, the stage is a slight twist where Sonic is holding Elise the whole time. This level is fine, although one thing I hate is you're supposed to have a shield that damages enemies, but it doesn't work sometimes, and I don't know why. Oh well, at least it's short. What follows makes absolutely no sense to me. Elise gets kidnapped, and for some reason, we play as Tails, ostensibly to rescue her. Tails goes back into Wave Ocean and plays a shorter version of the level, including the segment where you played as him before. And then, we get an unrelated cutscene and return to Sonic, never to bring up this Tails interlude again. Tails didn't rescue Elise or accomplish anything. Why is this here? It's completely pointless, and we already played this level, and Tails was there too. The only reason I can come up with for why this level exists is in the other episodes, a side character gets an exclusive stage. However, those progress the story and are recycled from an existing stage within that episode. This is so weird. We're almost done with Sonic's campaign, and the shop starts selling us gems. These are easily the best abilities in the game. The red gem lets you slow down time, the blue gem gives you a speed boost, and my personal favorite, the purple gem lets you repeatedly jump in the air. These all sound kind of broken, right? I bet you're wondering what the catch is. Well, see that meter in the corner? It's supposed to decrease when you use the gems. But it doesn't, either because they forgot, or the code doesn't execute properly. Consequently, Sonic essentially has superpowers now. You can infinitely fly with the purple gem, spend entire levels farming time bonuses with the red gem, or phase through matter altogether with the sky gem. These are very fun to use. There was supposed to be a rainbow gem that would allow you to use Supersonic in the levels. Unfortunately, this was scrapped along with the day-night feature when they started rushing the game out the door. Before the penultimate stage, Sonic has to complete the Trials of Soliana, which are basically 3 side missions in a row. Or as I like to call it, 12 loading screens. Ugh, this really kills the pace after you get the gems. Kingdom Valley is a good stage for the most part. I should mention that in this level, you play as Silver for a portion of it. This character crossover happens in the stage Aquatic Base during the Silver and Shadow campaigns as well. I'm not sure why they did this, but I'll reserve my thoughts on Silver for his episode. At the end, we reach the final Mach Speed section, and Jesus Christ. This part where you reach this curve and have to run along a waterfall killed me so many times. I could not figure out why it was happening. I would enter the curve and then lose control of Sonic as he kept moving upwards until he died. I raged during this section. I just kept dying for no reason. It turns out, the answer is you're supposed to be on the bottom part of the curve in order to maintain control of Sonic the whole time. How was I supposed to know that? This ruined the whole stage for me. I spent 11 minutes alone trying to beat the Mach Speed section. It was awful. It's a shame because this part looks great. You're running in between two waterfalls at the fastest speed we've ever seen Sonic before. I should love it, but I can't because I despise the gameplay. At least I'm done with the Mach Speed sections now. The final level is Aquatic Base, and it's unremarkable. At one point you have to move a ball around a room with lasers. It can be vexing, but aside from that the stage is manageable. Especially since I used the red and purple gems to cheese some areas. Tails and Knuckles have the last sections of the episode here, and that sucks because they're still not enjoyable to play as, although at least these parts are short. The final battle against Eggman is very similar to the end of Sonic's story in SA1, except it's much longer and nowhere near as fun. To give 06 credit, I do think it is cool that to hurt the boss, you need to ride him into debris. Once Eggman goes down, we are done with the Sonic episode. Overall, I sorta liked it, mainly because I was okay with most of the stages and the main hub world. And I think my expectations were extremely low. I kept thinking, wow, this is much better than I thought it would be. There are numerous aspects I hated, such as the Mach Speed sections, the horrendous frame rate, or the bad side characters. Collectively, they more than outweigh the pros, but I can't deny that I had a good time here. Even some of the bugs, I started accepting on an ironic level. In general, I dislike numerical ratings. I don't think art falls into a quantitative scale, yet for some strange reason, when I beat this episode, I started thinking 4 out of 10. So yeah, I had fun playing Sonic 06. I'm not defending the story, we'll get there, but I will say Sonic Team kinda cooked with the gameplay. Hopefully, things only improve from here. I'm excited to see what this new character Silver the Hedgehog plays like and... Oh my god!
This is terrible!
The episode opens in Crisis City, the home of Silver and his friend Blaze. In a cutscene, we see Silver destroy a pillar of fire and shoot across the sky with his powers. The reason I bring this up is Silver does not play like this at all. He can fly in the air, however it's more like a hover that doesn't move very fast or go that far. Strangely, the optimal way to use it to get as much distance as possible before the meter runs out is to repeatedly tap the A button. It looks stupid, but it helps you get through the stages quicker. Silver's gameplay is very combat focused. The way he fights is by using his telekinesis to pick up objects and then throw them at enemies. He can also catch some projectiles and chuck them back at the robots. The first issue I have with Silver is the most transparent. He is so slow. It takes him forever to get anywhere, and this makes his whole campaign feel longer than it actually is. You can technically speed him up when you unlock the teleport dash ability later on, but his distance is pathetic. I think hovering in the air is the fastest he goes. At least it feels faster. Regardless, moving as Silver feels antithetical to the whole point of the series. And he's the main character in this playthrough. We play as Blaze for the first time here. She's pretty similar to Sonic, except I think she's a bit faster than him. She has a variation of the homing attack, a neat double jump, and a grounded fire spin that I had a difficult time using. I've heard multiple people say that Blaze is the best character in 06, and I disagree with that take. You barely play as her, and when you do, none of her areas are interesting. I enjoyed using Sonic more because he has better level design, feels less clunky, and has access to the gems. After the stage, Silver gets taken to a hub road, and it's here where his speed really got on my nerves. There's a vast empty field you need to explore, and your character in a Sonic game is moving at 5 miles per hour. Why is he like this? It's time for Tropical Jungle, which has the honor of having the worst frame rate in the whole game. Look at my footage. I did not alter this. The game cannot keep up with the action at all. Another annoying thing about the stage is it's not clear where to go, so I got lost here. During the level, I realized a massive flaw with Silver's gameplay. Sometimes when you grab objects to launch at enemies, they go off in random directions and miss the target. This happens due to the poor physics engine, and there's not much you can do about it. You have to accept that your attacks will randomly fail for no reason. That's great. I love it when the combat doesn't work correctly. Blaze goes through Wave Ocean by herself, and I would enjoy it more if I didn't just play through the same stage twice with Sonic and Tails. Still, this is easily the highlight of the whole episode since you don't have to play as Silver. You know, the main character. Silver meets up with Amy, and we enter Dusty Desert, what many consider to be the worst stage in the entire game. By now, I've seen almost everything with Silver. Most of his gameplay is the combat, and it's way too simple. All I'm doing is launching objects at enemies. It takes forever, doesn't work properly, and most importantly, it's not fun. If I had to give some praise, I would say that Silver's platforming is decent, and I appreciate when the game gets a bit creative with his powers, like balancing boxes on these scales to jump across them, or bending metal bars. The best example of this is you can levitate crates by standing on top of them, and then fly from there for shortcuts. That's awesome. I wish the levels focused more on the platforming, because I think it's infinitely more interesting than the monotonous combat. Silver's boss fights aren't any more interesting than his levels. All of them are the exact same. You dodge their attacks, and when they're vulnerable, you throw everything in your vicinity at them. It's extremely lame and unimaginative. How do you beat Shadow the Hedgehog, the ultimate life form? You use his greatest weakness: wooden barrels. During Dusty Desert, we play as Amy for the first time, and yikes. She is the slowest character in the game. This is her max speed. It's awful. She can turn herself invisible for some reason, has a double jump with low momentum, and can only fight with her grounded hammer move. The range on the attack is non-existent, so expect to frequently take damage with her. She is abysmal in 06. Many people consider her the worst character, but she's barely in the game. For my money, that honor goes to Silver.
No way!
Congratulations, my friend. You did great. On the topic of Amy, you only use her 3 times in the game, with one of those being in the last story. That's the same amount you use Knuckles, and I have to ask, why are these characters even playable? Their gameplay is almost non-existent, they're not fun to use, and they contribute essentially nothing to the story. 06 was such a mess in development that some of these characters should have been removed, especially with how horrible their gameplay is. Dusty Desert ends with a ball puzzle, a section where you have to use the horrendous physics engine to guide this ball into a hole before its timer runs out. It is very slow and frustrating since it's impossible to predict how the ball will behave whenever you push it. And Silver's like the same speed as the ball, making it harder to line up the pushes. This puzzle is infamous for a reason. Everyone gets jammed here, sometimes for upwards of 30 minutes. It is the worst. Either I'm nice at this game, or I got extremely lucky because the puzzle only took me 7 minutes. Keep in mind, that's still abysmal for a Sonic level, but I was expecting it to take much longer. After returning to the hub road, we thankfully get a good upgrade for Silver. The Psycho Shock that stuns most enemies, allowing you to quickly kill them or use them as projectiles. This upgrade has been long overdue because it makes the one-dimensional combat two-dimensional. It also speeds up the whole process since you're not as reliant on the broken physics engine. This does mean you get hit more frequently since the move takes a bit of time, but it's worth it. White Acropolis is the last time you use Blaze, and the camera here is very poor. This isn't contained to this level either. 06's camera is awful. I find myself constantly adjusting it, which is not fun. Other than that, White Acropolis is okay, like relatively speaking. I don't have much more to say about Silver's campaign at this point. I think the combat is tedious, I hate having to move around the hub roads with him, and the whole playthrough is incredibly boring. We're nearing the end of the episode, so now there are more required side missions where you fight even more enemies. I learned during one of them that if you fail a mission, that adds 2 extra loading screens. One to remind you of your failure, and another kicking you back to the hub road where you need to go through 4 more loading screens to complete the mission. Oh my god. During this episode, the loading screens started to bother me. There's too many of them in every stage and boss fight that it makes the slow game even slower. 06 took me 12.5 total hours to beat, and I guarantee you at least an hour of it was me sitting through loading screens. It's absurd. Silver has to go through the Trials of Soliana 2, and 2 of the 3 missions are more combat challenges. Ugh, this sucks. Kingdom Valley is also the second to last stage in this episode, and it feels like the same area, copy and pasted 5 times in a row. I was genuinely excited when I got to play as Sonic during the level. His gameplay is far better than Silver's. It's crazy. But then we're back to Silver, and the joy is gone. Now we're at Flame Court, the last level. Thank God. Unfortunately, it's the worst one. There are legions of enemies that are all attacking you, tons of rooms to go through, and half the levels in the dark, where I had a difficult time seeing the platforms. I was desperate for Silver's playthrough to end at this point. Have I mentioned how long these stages are? Counting the loading screens, I was in this level for 17 total minutes. That is not okay. And then during the final battle, I glitched through the boss near the end and died. One last bug that kills me for the road. To give 06 some credit, Silver gets to do one exciting thing in the episode when he catches a giant fireball and flings it back at the boss. And with that, I am finally done with this campaign. As I watched the credits roll, I realized that I enjoyed very little of this episode's gameplay. I liked some of the platforming shortcuts, and I think that was basically it. Everything else was either boring or frustrating. It barely even feels like a Sonic game when the main character has no speed. The whole time I kept thinking, this is conceptually really cool with Silver's flight and telekinesis abilities. He's pretty different from the other characters we've played as before. And yet, he's the lamest character in execution. Silver's playthrough is horrible. It's a boring combat loop for 3.5 hours. Only one episode to go, and it's with Shadow the Hedgehog.
Death to all who oppose me!
Oh sweet Jesus, don't hurt me again. Let's kick things off with White Acropolis. Shadow and Sonic once again play similarly to each other, although there are more gameplay differences between them than before. The main focus of Shadow's levels are combat. Right now, this means you have to mash the homing attack on enemies. It's not fun. Shadow also has a projectile in the form of the Chaos Spear, but I think this ability is almost useless. It can stun enemies, however it's very rare you want to do that instead of directly attacking them. We play as Rouge in the level, and her gameplay is almost the same as with Knuckles, except her bomb attack is much better at fighting Eggman's robots. Although it's still irritating when I get stuck to walls. The vehicles from Shadow of 5 return in this campaign, and they're much less functional. The first is a buggy that has very wonky physics, and is once again slower than your base run speed. There's a side mission where you race other cars with it, and it's hilarious getting to use this unfinished mechanic for nearly 2 minutes. When I got back to the hub world, I discovered that the inclines in 06 are very glitchy. Like, what is happening here? Kingdom Valley is the following stage, and it's the worst one in the episode. Come to think of it, I've hated this level in every campaign. In one section, Rouge has to find 3 keys, and playing as her for minutes at a time in a wide open area with no radar is not enjoyable. Clearing this takes us to the hovercraft. You use this to go across water, and you can shoot at these towers and boxes. It does control well, and there's another section with it later on that I thought was decent. But here it's awful, because if you get hit by these collapsing towers, you instantly die. You have to play this whole section extremely slowly, and it is painful. This was the closest I came to getting a game over, and I really did not want to replay the stage. To make matters worse, I died near the end because my controls locked, and the collision pushed me off the stage. What is this nonsense? Yeah, this stage is trash. Once we're past Kingdom Valley, the rest of the vehicle segments in the episode are okay. I think I like them because there is a sense of speed, and they mostly work correctly. These hang glider sections are alright, and while the motorcycle is clunky, it gets the job done. I played through Crisis City, and I realized that most of Shadow stages feel uninspired. They mainly borrow the existing level design from the other playthroughs, except you're playing through them with Shadow, whose gameplay I find boring because I'm simply homing attacking a lot. I wasn't enjoying his levels at this point. Then things started to turn around during Flame Core. Earlier in the episode, Shadow got the move Chaos Boost that turns him red when he fills up his meter. The game does a poor job explaining how this works, but I finally figured out what it does. If you hold down the A button, Shadow automatically teleports to and defeats multiple enemies in a row. This in turn fills up the meter, so the goal of every stage is to activate the boost and use it to quickly kill every enemy you see to extend the transformation. Now that I understood this vital mechanic, I can enjoy the levels and combat more. It was far from perfect, since you need to beat too many enemies to fill up the meter, and the teleport is definitely inconsistent, but I was able to have some fun. Sadly, I hate the next boss fight. It's very slow, because you spend 90% of it just waiting in place. Sonic also had to go through this boss, and it was bad there, but I had a much worse experience with it this time. I kept dying. It was a miserable experience. Rouge plays through Silver's version of Tropical Jungle, and it's one of the best stages in 06, solely because you can skip almost everything with her glide. It's time for 2 back-to-back boss fights against this guy Mephiles, one with Shadow and the other with Omega. Omega's probably my favorite side character in the game. He feels the most complete. His gameplay is that he shoots at enemies either in the air or on the ground. His attacks do solid damage, his ground speed is solid, he can hover in the air, and he's functional. Finally, a side character who is enjoyable to play as. The next few levels with Shadow are okay. The level design is still recycled, but at least the vehicles in combat are somewhat engaging. Now we get one of the most shocking moments in the game.
Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean. Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to Wave Ocean immediately.
Yes, they left in an outtake. That is so embarrassing. Shadow's campaign definitely picks up near the end. I actually enjoyed Wave Ocean and Dusty Desert because their level design is mostly new, and we're only using Shadow and Omega. Although it is pathetic the final hang glider section can be beaten without moving. They were 100% rushing to finish this episode. Shadow's final boss is pretty fun, since you need to build up the Chaos boost to hit him. It's a well-designed fight. Mephiles goes down, and we are done. I really disliked this playthrough at the beginning because it was boring, but it did slightly grow on me once I got the hang of the combat and the vehicles. It's in between the Sonic and Silver campaigns in terms of quality, which means it was pretty bad. Before we move on, I should mention that like the previous games, there is a hard mode for every level if you're craving more Sonic 06. The multiplayer mode is returned too. I can appreciate that it has a lot more stages to play through than the versions in Heroes and Shadow of 5. The problem is this game sucks, so your friend is probably going to be annoyed with you afterwards. What I hate is if you play the battle mode, it's supposed to be a race, and yet there's an overload of enemies to fight that you're constantly slowing down. It was the first time I got bored playing one of these multiplayers. My favorite feature is if you play as Silver, you can freeze your friend in place for a very long amount of time. It only ends if you need to use another psychic move. It is extremely dumb. There's no shot they playtested this. Funny story, when my friends and I were younger, one of us owned 06, and we would play this mode together. He would only use Silver to mess with us. It was frustrating and hilarious. Okay, we are finally done with all the playthroughs. Let's get into the last episode. Wait, I didn't talk about the story yet. Aw, man.
What's the point of all this? It'll never end.
I'm gonna begin with the Sonic episode. Remember how Eggman kidnapped Elise in the opening? Well, that one sentence basically summarizes Sonic's entire story. Eggman kidnaps Elise, and then Sonic saves her. Eggman kidnaps Elise, and then Sonic saves her. It happens 4 times before the episode is over. I'm sorry, 5 times. At one point in Silver's story, Elise gets rescued by Amy, and then kidnapped again for no reason. There are other events that happen here, like Silver trying to kill Sonic, or the group getting sent to the future, but they're not very important to this individual episode. The main topic to discuss is the romance. Yeah, Sonic and Elise fall in love with each other. It is weird. There's something disturbing about watching Sonic date a semi-realistic human woman. Especially in 06, when he looks like a bobblehead compared to her. Seriously, why is his head so massive in this game? And the romance doesn't feel natural because we don't know much about Elise as a person except that she's an orphan and can't cry. I don't understand why Sonic is attracted to her unless he's trying to marry into her money or something. The terrible English lip syncing makes it even harder to take any of this seriously. Although on the bright side, the 4 kids voice actors overall do a better job here than in Shadow the Hedgehog. For example, Jason Griffith is pretty good as Sonic in Shadow, and Lacey Chabert is doing the best she can with Elise. Not all of them are winners though, like the voice actors for Silver and Omega. Even if I ignore the romance, I find the main plot being Elise gets kidnapped over and over again incredibly lazy. You guys couldn't come up with anything else for the main character to do? At the end of Kingdom Valley, Eggman somehow pilots his ship wrong, and he and Elise die.
Elise!
Nah, the game keeps going. Sonic and Silver travel back through time to save her. The one compliment I'll give this story is the final cinematic where Sonic and Elise escape Eggman's base is super exciting. And as awful as the romance is, it is funny in an ironic, what am I watching way. Which is more than I can say for the Silver episode. Silver the Hedgehog is from a future where an immortal fire monster called Iblis was unleashed, and it has taken over the world. Silver constantly defeats Iblis, but the demon always returns. It's like a force of nature. One day after battling Iblis with his friend Blaze, they meet Mephiles, who looks like Shadow, if the developers rendered him incorrectly.
You need to find the being originally responsible for this catastrophe.
Mephiles tells them Sonic is the Iblis trigger, and they can save the future if they go back in time and murder him. Silver and Blaze believe Mephiles because they see a gif of Sonic surrounded by fire. They don't see him awaken Iblis, but that gif is damning. Now they want to kill Sonic, even though Mephiles is like the most sus person ever. He looks like a bad guy, sounds evil, and doesn't even have a mouth. That doesn't raise any red flags. Also, Mephiles' name comes from Mephistopheles, a demon in German folklore. How do Silver and Blaze not know this? Are they supposed to be stupid? Are there no books in the future? Silver meets Amy, and they both try to track down Sonic together. But she doesn't know that he wants to kill Sonic. So when Silver's about to execute him, Amy steps in.
His actions will cause the devastation of my world, so I must!
No! I don't believe it. Even if that was true. If I had to choose between the world and Sonic, I would choose Sonic.
God, I'm sick of these games having terrible writing. Amy is correct in this situation, but the actual dialogue is poorly written. It should be something like this. I know Sonic's character. He would never do this. I would trust him to make the right decision. We next get a crazy scene where Silver and Blaze talk about if it's right to kill one person to save the world. In my head, I remember this dialogue as Blaze being reluctant to help with Mephiles' plan. However, to my surprise, it's the exact opposite. She's like, shut up, Silver. We have to murder Sonic to save the future. It's what that guy told us. You know, the creepy guy with no mouth. She doesn't even hesitate. Sonic would likely be dead by now if Blaze found him first. Silver then tries to kill Sonic again, only to be stopped by Shadow. I have to say that Silver is very unlikable in the story because he never spares Sonic on his own. He needs two different people to stop him from executing an innocent person. That's not very heroic. Maybe that's why everyone loves this scene.
Chaos control!
Shadow and Silver activate Chaos Control at the same time, creating a portal they can travel through time with. They go back into the past to a lab where the King of Soliana is experimenting on Mephiles and Iblis. Things go wrong, and both are released, forcing the two hedgehogs to split up to seal away their antagonists. When Silver tries to contain Iblis, the Dying King tells him that's impossible unless he seals the creature into Little Elise because of her royal blood or something. After finishing the exposition, the king dies. So the whole game, Iblis is sealed away in Elise, and it'll stay that way unless she cries. This is why Eggman kidnaps her all the time. He knows she contains the flames of disaster and wants to harness that power. The issue with this twist is it's stupid. We're supposed to believe that Elise wakes up, finds her dad died, and doesn't cry because he told her not to, and that she has never cried in the decades since. What? How am I supposed to believe any of this? This is not how people act at all, especially children. And can we talk about how the government of Soliana is messed up? They clearly have the worst security ever, a dumb king, and a princess who's in love with an animal. This is why monarchies suck. Silver goes back to the present and reunites with Sonic, having completed his character arc where he learned not to execute an innocent person. They team up to rescue Elise, and when she dies, it's Silver who helps Sonic travel through time. By the way, they never discuss the idea that time travel can mess up the present in this story. That never crosses anyone's mind. And it goes without saying that because of the time travel focus, the story won't ever make sense, since time travel itself is a crazy concept that doesn't work when you start to think about it. Silver and Blaze return to the future to seal away Iblis. This ending makes no sense, and I hate it. Silver tries to do what the king did with Elise, but finds that he can't be the vessel. However, Blaze can, because she has fire powers or something? What?
Don't worry. My soul is already alit with flames.
She then tells Silver to use Chaos Control to place her in another dimension. Wait, it can do that? Silver never uses Chaos Control, yet somehow Blaze still fades away. Why does that happen? And her emotional goodbye to Silver doesn't work because I barely know anything about these characters besides their philosophy on premeditated murder. There is a great idea here where someone has to be a vessel and the only candidate is Silver's best friend, his only friend. They succeed at the end, yet it's a hollow victory since Blaze won't be in the bright new future. I love all that conceptually, but it doesn't work when I don't know or like these characters. This whole story is abysmal. I can't believe that most of it is centered on Silver trying to kill Sonic, with nothing else going on. I honestly think it's worse than the Sonic campaign because at least those characters are more intelligent and likable. The best part about beating Silver's episode is that meant I got to hear Dreams of an Absolution. It's Silver's main theme, and I absolutely love it. It's my favorite vocal track in any Sonic game, hands down. The LB vs. JS version is amazing too. As a whole, the soundtrack is phenomenal in 06. It's one of the greatest in the series. Every track is pleasant to listen to. My personal favorite aside from the vocal songs is the results theme. It's very somber and peaceful. The music is definitely the best part about the game. While we're on the subject of presentation, I don't think the graphics are as nice. The character models aren't great, and some textures look straight out of a PS2 game. Oh, and the NPCs in Soliana are hideous. Returning to the plot, we have Shadow's story. Immediately I'm confused because we find out Shadow is now working for Gun, even though he hates them and injured thousands of their soldiers in the last game. I guess he really did move on from Maria's death. What is it with characters who should hate Gun going on to work for that agency in the series? Is no one else hiring? I don't understand. Okay, so Shadow and Rouge need to get the scepter. Eggman tries to steal it, and during a scuffle, the scepter breaks open and Mephiles is released. He bases himself off Shadow's, Shadow, and acts like they've already met. He then teleports the two into the future, where they meet up with Sonic's group. Shadow's goal is to try to get back to the present and seal Mephiles again. From here, the narrative becomes a conventional time travel story. It sets up mysteries and reveals the answers come from the characters themselves time traveling. For example, Mephiles knows about Shadow in the present because it turns out that Shadow is the one who sealed him in the scepter when Silver and Shadow go into the past. This premise is definitely more interesting to watch than repeatedly saving the same character over and over again. My favorite part of the story is when Mephiles tries to tempt Shadow into joining him. He reveals that when Iblis is released, humanity blames Shadow and uses his friend Omega to lock him up. After hearing about this dark future and being offered the chance to punish humanity with Mephiles, here's what Shadow says.
I determine my own destiny.
That is raw as hell. It was the first time in hours I felt genuine happiness playing this game. It's legitimately a cool moment. I enjoy how the plot shows Shadow's character growth over the years. Before he had to deal with a tragic past, and now he's faced with a nightmarish future. This time he immediately chooses to do the right thing and fight against Mephiles. That's nice. It makes for a compelling character. And they did it without talking about Gerard Robotnik, or aliens, or any of that crap. Even the other characters get some good moments. I like how Rouge tells Shadow she'll always have his back. And Mephiles is a solid villain. I love how creepy he is with his animations and his two weird forms. He's so evil, and he loves it. It makes him fun to watch.
Oh, how ironic fate can be.
And it's a cool idea that Shadow has his own rival character, who's way more sinister than he was back in SA2. The ending cutscene where Shadow takes off his inhibitor rings to fight Mephiles' clone army is another hype moment. I actually enjoyed this story. If it was in a different game, many people will call it one of the best narratives in the series. So overall, the gameplay in 06 mostly sucks except for the Sonic episode, and the story is terrible with the exception of the Shadow campaign. Poor Silver is always a loser. We've reached the last episode. Within the first 2 minutes, Mephiles shoots Sonic in the back with a laser beam, instantly killing him. I guess we're not being metaphorical anymore. 06 literally kills Sonic. Wow. Elise cries, and this releases Iblis. I've heard some people complain that Mephiles could have done this hours earlier and skipped the whole Silver manipulation thing. That's true, but let's be honest. This dude is so evil, I can 100% buy him trying to manipulate other people to do his dirty work for him, just for the fun of it. Mephiles and Iblis merge together into a godlike being called Solaris, who controls all of space and time. This screws up reality and merges the past, present, and future together or something. I don't know. The point is Silver gets teleported here. Not Blaze though, since she died sealing away Iblis. Even though Iblis is here in the present right now. Man, time travel makes no sense. The group decides they need the Chaos Emeralds to stop Solaris and bring Sonic back to life. I guess the Chaos Emeralds can do anything in this game. This takes us to the final level, appropriately titled End of the World. The alternate title is End of My Patience. This stage is horrible. You play as 7 different characters in recycled stages, and their goal is to obtain the Chaos Emeralds. The problem is there are rifts spawning that can suck your characters in and instantly kill them. Then there are red rifts that throw objects at you. How are you even supposed to avoid some of these? You need to find these switches that temporarily stop the rifts, and then dodge the new ones that are appearing. The worst sections in the stage predictably belong to Silver and Amy, since they're slow as hell. Silver's portion alone took me 5 minutes. And your lives reset to 5 here, so getting a game over is very easy. However, the worst thing about this stage is each section has its own loading screen for a total of 7. Oh my god, enough with the loading screens. This whole level's a nightmare. Could things get any worse? The group gather the Chaos Emeralds that Elise will use to revive Sonic, and...
Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no.
It's no use!
This game is now pro-bestiality and necrophilia. Yikes. Did she really have to kiss the corpse, guys? Come on. All three hedgehogs go super to fight Solaris in the past, present, and future. This is what everything has been building to. It's time for the final battle.
I guess it's not gonna be that easy.
I like the design of Solaris, where he's a Final Fantasy god monster. I cannot say the same for his fight though. It took me so long to figure out how to hit him. I think he frequently changes what moves he's going to use, and one of the hedgehogs should always be able to counter him. Like when he shields with his hands, you need to be silver, and then throw stuff at him. I'm not 100% sure if that's how it works though. It's also hard to visually tell when a move is going to deal damage to him. At least you should never die here, because your rings reset when you switch to a different hedgehog. After 2 long phases, Solaris goes down, and at last, Sonic 06 is complete. In the ending cutscene, Sonic and Elise go back in time to when Solaris was just a small flame. We find out that Elise's father wanted to harness Solaris to travel through time to see his wife again. I think that's a neat backstory. We have a king who has all this power, yet what he longs for most is his deceased wife. In his attempt to reunite with her, he dies and winds up causing the apocalypse because he tried to play God with the universe. Additionally, I kinda like how it is a hard choice for Elise to extinguish Solaris at the end, because it means she'll never meet Sonic. It parallels Shadow's story, where he knows the future is going to turn out poorly for him, yet he still does the right thing. Here it's the reverse, where they would like to be together in the future, but saving the world means they never meet. So they have to sacrifice their happiness for the greater good. Oh my god. Did I just analyze this stupid story where 20 minutes ago a human kissed a dead animal and brought him back to life? What is wrong with me? Elise blows out Solaris, and the whole game gets wiped from continuity, saving everyone thousands of dollars on therapy bills. The final cinematic is pretty cool. It's a nice callback to the opening, where the festival goes right this time. And the shot of Sonic looking at the moon is fantastic. If only the rest of the game was as good as this moment. After 06 was released, it was panned by everyone. Sega realized they messed up by putting out such a terrible product due to corporate greed. They took to heart a lot of criticism people had with this game. The next main series entry was Sonic Unleashed, where they moved past the adventure-style gameplay in an attempt to save the series. Most notably, all of Sonic's friends were no longer playable since they were so hated in 06. The crazy thing about Unleashed is Sonic being the only playable character became the new status quo for the next 15 years, until Sonic Frontiers' DLC came out. This weird guy doesn't count. The other characters still showed up, yet they were never playable. In hindsight, I think this was an overcorrection because many people like myself love the adventure games and the other characters. Doing something different was the right idea at the time, but I wish they brought back more of these features sooner than 2023. In the almost 20 years since 06 was released, a fan game has been developed called Project 06 that takes the stages from the original game and remakes it for PC. Except they all work correctly now, and it's genuinely a great game, proving the issue wasn't the concepts in 06, it was always the poor execution. Now that we've discussed everything, I think I'm ready to uncurl. I can confidently say that Sonic 06 is horrible. It's super buggy, the story is horrendous, the loading screens take forever, and 2 of the campaigns are boring or frustrating. And yet, I didn't hate it. There's a lot to dislike, but the good level design and some okay characters saved this game for me. I still stand by the fact that I enjoy the Sonic episode. And while the story is awful, it has redeeming aspects, and I can appreciate that they tried to make another epic story like an SA2. To be honest, even though 06 was very bad, I would gladly play it over Shadow of 5 any day. That game was polished, but it was a tedious slog to get through. And the writing was somehow worse than this fetish stuff. At least in 06, the main characters are generally likable, and the story follows a somewhat logical sequence of events from scene to scene. Man, that is such a small compliment. Shadow of 5 really sucked. The tragedy about this game is there was tons of missed potential because it was rushed out the door, like the mock speed sections, Silver's powers, or most of the side characters. I sincerely believe that if 06 was completed, it would be one of the best titles in the series. It has a lot going for it, and I'm incredibly happy P06 exists, so we finally get to see that in action. Even Sega themselves are starting to recognize the good ideas in this game. Last year we had Mephiles and Kingdom Valley, both return in Shadow Generations. And Sonic as a brand is doing better than ever right now. Maybe in one of the movies, they can tackle the story again and do it correctly. That would be pretty cool. The point is, even though 06 is not a good game, there's a lot people like me appreciate about it. Looking back at these Sonic games has been really fun. I know the quality has gotten worse, and none of them are very consistent, but us fans have a blast with them anyway. Such as Sonic's levels in Adventure 1, the epic story in SA2, or the cool team gimmick of Heroes. All these games are special, and I'm happy I was able to explain why they fascinate me so much. I'll always love this era of the series. Ever since I was a kid, it's been a dream of mine to make reviews of these games, and I cannot believe it has finally happened. These types of videos are what I grew up watching, and they're the reason why I tried many of my favorite games. I am extremely satisfied that I have come full circle. I put months of work into the series, trying to make the best content I possibly could. I hope you had fun watching it. With all that being said, I only have one thing left. Sayonara.